Chapter 2543. Green grasslands, green river water, surrounded by forests, hundreds of birds cheering, and thousands of flowers blooming. The two kings of the everlasting celestial empire looked at each other. North vanquishing king took a deep breath and said solemnly, "Marquis, I dare not claim to be the best in the world in terms of talent and strategy, but I am definitely more mature than my useless brothers. Furthermore, I am a king outside, I know more about the world and the people's mentality. You can also go to my fief to investigate. If there are people who are dissatisfied with me, I will immediately give up the crown prince position. I have been in my fief for countless years. I can't just put on a show from the start. I am sincere." Yi Qinghan nodded and said calmly, "Brother, I understand. I've asked Princess Qingyun before, and Tang Jiao, who has the bloodline of the immemorial gods, also said that you are a kind ruler. Otherwise, I wouldn't have met you today. However, I'm afraid that the crown prince position is not something you and I can decide. If I were you, I would rather wait than make a move." The first prince, North vanquishing king, stared at Yi Qinghan and said in a deep voice, "You don't understand the conferment of the position of crown prince. When the immortal emperor conferred the title, he would definitely ask for the opinions of the various marquises and royal uncles. After all, their support is the foundation of the celestial empire's stability. This king is usually away from the imperial capital and has almost never managed anything in it. The relationship between the civil and military officials, as well as the various marquises and royal uncles, is not that good. It is a little too late for me to befriend them now. However, you are different. I have seen your trial and was inspired by your final battle. I feel that, among the younger generation under the heavens, you are one of a kind." Yi Qinghan pursed his lips and fell into deep thought. He originally didn't want to interfere with the crown prince position and just wanted to run his own heaven-suppressing prefecture. Even if the celestial emperor sent him into a perilous place, even if he couldn't return alive, the insane sect would still have the capital to establish itself in the everlasting celestial world. Once he interfered with the crown prince position, he would be making enemies. It would be fine if he succeeded in protecting the first prince, but if he failed, the revenge would be obvious. I understand your concerns. The insane sect has just established itself in the everlasting celestial world and is not strong enough. You are afraid of revenge. I know you are not afraid, but you are worried about the insane sect's survival. But I can promise you, if I am the crown prince, the North vanquishing prefecture will also be your fief, heaven-suppressing marquis," said North vanquishing king. The North vanquishing king's land was located right at the throat of the heaven-suppressing prefecture district. That area was very important, and after the North vanquishing king explained the importance and strategy of the North vanquishing prefecture district, Yi Qinghan grew excited. Yi Qinghan let out a breath and asked calmly, "How do you want me to help?" North vanquishing king looked at Yi Qinghan and knew he was tempted. He said, "If I am not wrong, the celestial emperor will soon gather all the marquises and royal uncles to discuss the crown prince position. As long as you recommend me impartially, I will be grateful regardless of whether I succeed or not. If I succeed, the North vanquishing prefecture will be yours. But if I fail, I will defend the North vanquishing prefecture to the death." Yi Qinghan thought for a moment and nodded. "Brother, please write down your advantages and merits for me. I will organize my words. I also believe in Tang Jiao and Princess Qingyun's judgment. I believe you are a kind and righteous ruler." North vanquishing king was overjoyed. He bowed and said, "Thank you, heaven-suppressing marquis, for your kindness. If I can be crowned as the crown prince and control the celestial empire, I will definitely support the development of the heaven-suppressing prefecture and the construction of the insane sect. I will treat Marquis as my brother. Since I support you, I have investigated you. If I really covet the North Vanquishing Prefecture, I can easily get it by supporting Prince Zhetsong. However, the Celestial Emperor put me in an important position and he is my talent scout. I must not let him down. So as long as he asks me, I will recommend the best candidate to him. I have never doubted my judgment, Yi Qinghan said confidently. North Vanquishing King took a deep breath and his face turned red. He knew that since the Celestial Emperor made Yi Qinghan a marquis when he was still a low-level Xian immortal, the Celestial Emperor would definitely put him in an important position. Hua. North Vanquishing King took out a document. It was full of self-recommendation letters and achievements of the past few years. These were all traceable and not fake report. Marquis, please take a look. Also, please come to the North Vanquishing Prefecture for inspection and verification. I am not lying. I only want to be a wise ruler. North Vanquishing King said firmly. Yi Qinghan took over the document and read it carefully. He felt that North Vanquishing King's ruling methods and policies were ahead of the times. There were many things that the insane sect could learn from him. It would not be an exaggeration to say that he was a wise ruler. I will go with you. You don't have to pretend. Once we return to the imperial capital, I will report everything as it is. Only with a clear conscience can I speak out for justice. Yi Qinghan said honestly. Hua. North Vanquishing King took off his cloak. His face was full of vigor and his eyes were clear and bright. He looked like a wise ruler. I did not misjudge you. I have endured for countless years without contacting any of the royal uncles or marquis. I only want to be myself and wait for the right person to spot me. North Vanquishing King said excitedly. Yi Qinghan sighed. Royal brother, please don't make things difficult for me. If you are crowned as the crown prince, I will have to rely on you in the future. North Vanquishing King's emotions were complicated. In his opinion, as long as Yi Qinghan was willing to support him, he would have at least a 50% chance of becoming the crown prince. Marquis, this way please. We will head to the North Vanquishing Prefecture. You can take a look at the relationship between the North Vanquishing Prefecture and the prosperity and unity of the North Vanquishing Prefecture. I think it is comparable to the insane sect. Yi Qinghan did not say anything else. He left the North Divine Island with North Vanquishing Prefecture and headed straight for the Heaven-Suppressing Prefecture city. The two of them were both experts. Their speed was extremely fast, and with the passage of time, they turned into streaks of light. A few days later, the two traveled across half of the Heaven-Suppressing Prefecture district. When they arrived at the Heaven-Suppressing Prefecture city, they did not enter. Instead, they headed straight to where the ancient massacre god was stationed. At the same time, the princes were already on the move. They were all looking for supporters. Immortal Emperor Qing Zun ignored them and waited patiently for the princes. He wanted to see the relationship between the Marquis and the royal uncle so that he could teach them a lesson. The battle between the immortal emperors would take place in the ancient immortal world. In that place, no one knew if they would survive. Thus, the immortal emperors were all building a foundation for their own celestial kingdoms. The ancient clans and sects were all alerted. They were of high status and normally, they would not take part in the political struggles. However, this was a special time and they had to come out to defend the celestial kingdoms. These ancient clans and sects were only loyal to the royal immortal emperors. As long as the royal immortal emperors agreed to crown the crown prince, they would defend the celestial kingdoms to the death. The Tang clan was one of them. The Tang clan's elder even personally met with Xianyuan Qingyun and asked for her opinion. Xianyuan Qingyun pouted. She did not want to take part in the battle for the crown prince's position. She did not even want to help Xianyuan Zhetsong. She wanted to let nature take its course. However, her attitude was not firm. She only replied that she would support whoever the heaven-suppressing marquis wanted. . Chapter 2544. The Northern Suppression District was indeed a flourishing place. It was a vast land with a peaceful atmosphere and few fights. It was indeed rare to have such a sacred land at the border. Yi Qinghan had been inspecting the Northern Suppression District for more than a year. He looked at every corner of the district and recorded all the good points of the Northern Suppression King's governance plan. It was not only to help him become the crown prince, but also to govern the heaven-suppressing prefecture. After Yi Qinghan finished inspecting the Northern Suppression District, before he returned, the imperial capital summoned all the marquises. All the king marquises and royal uncles were summoned, including Yan Ao, the newly crowned Yan king. Yi Qinghan sent a message to Yan Ao, telling him to wait for him in the Northern Suppression District. Half a month later, Yan Ao appeared in the Northern Suppression District, heading towards the imperial capital with the Northern Suppression King and Yi Qinghan. The Northern Suppression King's dragon carriage was pulled by 3 powerful mid-tier mystic immortal-level immortal beasts. Its speed was much faster than flying on their own. It would take a few years for the mystic immortal-level immortal beasts to travel across half of the immortal-level immortal beasts. The 12 marquises, who were all at the golden immortal level, had already arrived. They had already begun to secretly discuss which prince they would support as the crown prince. More than 20 royal uncles formed their own alliances, and as a whole, they revolved around the 4 or 5 princes. Xianyuan Xiangod had been running around for Xianyuan Zhitsong. Many of them had yet to express their stance because of Yi Qinghan. Half of them chose to remain neutral. Without a clear situation, they would not choose a side and would listen to the immortal monarch's orders. Immortal monarch Qing Zun saw everything. This was not the first time the crown prince was crowned, and the scene was always the same. Thus, he was not looking forward to it. But now, with the addition of the arrogant heaven suppression marquis, he wanted to see if there would be any surprises when the old marquis and the new marquis clashed. Xianyuan Qinyun was once again brought back by Tang Jiayao. However, this time, Tang Jiayao did not represent herself. Instead, she represented the fire god shrine of the primordial god. Her stance was especially important because on the surface, her potential was even more terrifying than Yi Qinghan's. She possessed the primordial fire god shrine's divinity. Xianyuan Xianshen was the first to visit Tang Jiayao, hoping to get her support. However, Tang Jiayao didn't represent herself. She couldn't choose to support Xianyuan Zhitsong just because of her personal relationship with Xianyuan Qinyun. She had to make a decision based on what would happen later. Yi Qinghan was the furthest away from the imperial capital. He arrived late with North Vanquishing Prince and Yan Ao. As soon as they landed outside the imperial capital, several princes and uncles came to greet them, including Xianyuan Zhitsong and Xianyuan Shen. Tang Jiayao rushed out fiercely. The fire elements around her were strong enough to burn an immortal earth immortal to death. Even heavenly immortal experts didn't dare to come close. Yi Qinghan shrugged, looked at the furious Tang Jiayao and said, "As the inheritor of the Tang clan's primordial god shrine, don't embarrass the primordial god bloodline here. Let's settle this in private. What do you think? Where's that bastard bird of yours?" Tang Jiayao asked angrily. Yi Qinghan smiled bitterly. It seemed like Tang Jiayao was driven mad by Sovereign Yi. In order to appease Tang Jiayao, he said helplessly, "He didn't come with me this time. If you're angry, I'll bring you to the heaven-suppressing prefecture after we meet the Celestial Emperor. I'll let him apologize to you." "I don't need your apology and I won't accept it. After we meet the Celestial Emperor, I'll fight you to the death," Tang Jiayao shouted angrily. Yi Qinghan smiled faintly and didn't say anything else. The other imperial uncles came forward to mediate, hoping to resolve the grudge between the two. However, Tang Jiayao didn't give them any face and left with a wave of her sleeve. "Lord Heaven-suppressing Marquis, you're finally here. Last time, you didn't go with Qinyun to visit her mother. She's still a little angry. This time, you must go with her. Xianyuan God walked up with a smile, acting like an elder. Obviously, he hoped that the other imperial uncles wouldn't have any ideas about Yi Qinghan. Yi Qinghan smiled and thought, I'm afraid you all won't want to see me after this meeting with the Celestial Emperor. However, he still had to give them some face. He smiled and said, Thank you, Imperial Uncle. I'll definitely visit when I have the time. Many imperial uncles thought that the first prince had given up the position of crown prince and came forward to rope him in. In any case, the first prince was a border king, equivalent to a marquis. He had a high position and had 5 million Xianyuan army. His status was extraordinary. Most importantly, he was a member of the imperial family and was trustworthy. North Vanquishing Prince had the aura of a military king. He was vigorous and powerful. Even Xianyuan Zhetsang seemed a little immature in front of him. He was mature and steady. He didn't offend the imperial uncles and marquis. He didn't say that he wanted to fight for the position of crown prince, nor did he say that he wanted to support a prince. He was only waiting for Yi Qinghan to take the initiative. This was the typical mentality of an emperor. If Yi Qinghan didn't appear, he might endure silently. However, when Yi Qinghan appeared, his emperor's momentum was formed. When Yi Qinghan entered the imperial capital, he separated from North Vanquishing Prince and entered an inn with Yen Ao. After washing up, they chose a private room to rest. However, how could the imperial uncles and marquis let them rest? Yi Qinghan's attitude was equivalent to representing Yen Ao. Everyone wanted to win over Yi Qinghan's support. No one knew what Ling Yang was thinking. She had a neutral attitude before, but she was the first to find Yi Qinghan. Heaven-suppressing Marquis, Flame King, do you have anyone to support? Ling Yang entered the private room and asked bluntly. Yi Qinghan looked at Ling Yang. He didn't need to give face to others, but he still needed to give face to her. After all, he owed her such a big favor. Greetings, Marquis Ling Yang. Aren't you neutral? Why do you care about this? Yi Qinghan asked curiously. You and I are from the same sect. We were both promoted by the Lord Immortal Emperor. I don't want you to stand on the wrong side, so I came to remind you, Ling Yang said calmly. Yi Qinghan let out a sigh of relief. He was really afraid that Ling Yang had already found someone to support. Marquis, do you have anyone to support? Yi Qinghan asked curiously. Ling Yang shook her head and said calmly, I am a regional official with a high position and authority. My every word and action represents the orthodoxy of the celestial nation. So, since the Lord Immortal Emperor hasn't said anything, I won't do anything. Yi Qinghan looked at Ling Yang's serious expression and knew that she was truly loyal to the Lord Immortal Emperor. At this time, there really wasn't any prince who could gain her support. Yi Qinghan thought of a plan, hoping to rope Ling Yang in to support the North Vanquishing King. Whoosh! Yi Qinghan took out the data he'd collected from the North Vanquishing King, then stood up and bowed. He respectfully said, Marquis, this junior doesn't want to lie to you. A few days ago, I went to the North Vanquishing King to investigate. Some of the North Vanquishing King's policies were an eye-opener for this junior. The North Vanquishing King is a benevolent and righteous ruler. Although we are loyal to the Lord Immortal Emperor, shouldn't we share the Lord Immortal Emperor's burdens with his salary? I feel that we shouldn't be neutral. Instead, we should recommend a wise ruler that the Lord Immortal Emperor can rest assured of. Ling Yang was stunned by Yi Qinghan's words. She felt that it made sense, so she opened the records Yi Qinghan gave her. Over the years, many people had been praising the North Vanquishing King's way of governing, but no one took it to heart. However, Yi Qinghan's personal records made Ling Yang's eyes light up. Many policies were worth promoting. Interesting. This marquis has been thinking about how to cultivate and how to be loyal to the Lord. I didn't expect that neglecting the policies of the fief could be so effective. Ling Yang sighed. Yi Qinghan immediately bowed and said, I know that the Marquis is loyal to the Lord Immortal Emperor. Everyone in the world knows this, and the Lord Immortal Emperor knows this as well. If you were only helping the Lord Immortal Emperor guard the borders, I dare say that many people would be able to do the same. However, recommending a wise ruler to the Lord Immortal Emperor would save him a lot of trouble. Ling Yang carefully read Yi Qinghan's records. After a long time, she nodded and said, This Marquis understands. Take your time to rest. I'm leaving. Chapter 2545. After Ling Yang left, Yi Qinghan heaved a sigh of relief. He hoped that he could change Ling Yang's attitude. Even if Ling Yang didn't support him in the imperial court, he wouldn't oppose him. Yan Ao's gaze never left Ling Yang. After Ling Yang left the room, he said bluntly, He's moved. Yi Qinghan smiled, That's good. The Northern Suppression District is very important to us. If we can take it down, the immortal world will be peaceful, and we will have enough room to develop. If not, we can use the Northern Suppression District and the Heaven Suppressing Palace District to conquer the immortal world. Yan Ao's eyes flashed. Yi Qinghan didn't like fighting and killing, but Yan Ao liked it. As a general, he could die without regrets if he didn't die on the battlefield. How could a military saint be called a military saint if he didn't die on the battlefield? After that, many other marquises and emperors came to visit. However, Yi Qinghan didn't say who he supported. He only said that he supported someone and didn't deny that it was Xianyuan Zhetsong. Xianyuan Zhetsong was now sure that Yi Qinghan supported him. After all, Yi Qinghan was half his brother-in-law and the immortal emperor would probably grant him a marriage. Everyone had their own supporters and the princes didn't have much confidence because none of them received a clear reply from Yi Qinghan. At the last moment, Xianyuan Qingyun seemed to have changed her mind. She asked Yi Qinghan a few times about who he supported. Yi Qinghan sighed and didn't want to hide it anymore. He said, I don't support Prince Zhetsong. Xianyuan Qingyun's expression changed slightly, but she quickly said, I will support whoever you support. Yi Qinghan felt a little guilty. If he didn't support Prince Zhetsong, Princess Qingyun's relationship with her parents would be broken. Don't support me. If His Excellency Immortal Emperor summons you, you have to support Prince Zhetsong. I have my own decision. Since I support a prince, I have an 80% chance of making him the crown prince. Yi Qinghan said confidently. Isn't it good to have one more supporter? Wouldn't that increase our chances? Xianyuan Qingyun didn't understand why Yi Qinghan would refuse her goodwill. Yi Qinghan sighed. Actually, he wasn't rejecting Xianyuan Qingyun's goodwill. Instead, he was rejecting her. If the immortal emperor didn't grant the marriage, he wouldn't marry her. However, if the immortal emperor did grant the marriage, then it wouldn't be up to him to make the decision. After all, the imperial clan needed someone they could trust to form a marriage alliance. Yi Qinghan's silence rendered Xianyuan Qingyun speechless for a long time. She was a princess and was even more intelligent. The reason why Yi Qinghan didn't dare to accept her goodwill was because he was afraid that he would let her down and not be able to marry her. I understand. Xianyuan Qingyun nodded, lowered her head, and left. Her back looked extremely sorrowful. Yan Ao looked at Xianyuan Qingyun's expression and said indifferently, Boss, why bother? Instead of letting her stay in the princess residence, why don't you bring her back to the Crazy Manor? She's a princess after all. The other third of the galaxy-defying space diagram is still with her. Yi Qinghan snorted. I can't bear that responsibility. Let's take it one step at a time. I can push the North vanquishing prince up even without her support. Why should I let her stand against my parents? That's true. Yan Ao trusted Yi Qinghan very much. He felt that since Yi Qinghan was willing to nod, then he had a certain level of confidence. In the imperial hall of the inner palace, Immortal Emperor Qing Zun placed the 8 trigrams star in front of him. He seemed to be calculating something. He pointed his sword at the Grand Sovereign Star a few times. The Grand Sovereign Star was referring to the first prince. Why is it him? Immortal Emperor Qing Zun was astonished. He also had a preliminary candidate for the crown prince, but it wasn't the North Vanquishing Prince. If he wanted to make the North Vanquishing Prince the crown prince, he wouldn't have sealed him out of the imperial capital. Taihao, summon the 36 marquises, 81 kings, the princes and princesses, the patriarchs of various races, the sect masters of ancient sects, and the primordial gods to the palace. Today, we will confer the title of Crown Prince and control the Celestial Empire. Immortal Emperor Qing Zun slowly stood up and said in a deep voice, "Whoosh." Immortal Emperor Qing Zun's expression was calm as he walked towards the imperial capital. Summon the 36 marquises, 81 kings, the princes and princesses, the patriarchs of various races, the sect masters of ancient sects, and the primordial gods to the palace. Today, we will confer the title of Crown Prince and control the Celestial Empire. A deep voice reverberated throughout the celestial nation's imperial capital. Boom! Buzz! The primordial great bell reverberated, its sound deafening to the ears. At this moment, the 36 marquises and the various kings were already waiting in the inner city. Their expressions were solemn and filled with anticipation. Whoosh! Upon hearing the summons, everyone walked towards the inner palace. In groups of 3 to 5, there was no longer any discussion. It was clear who would help whom. Yi Qinghan and Yen Ao were the 2 youngest marquises aside from the royal family. They were the most eye-catching. Many princesses were looking at them, except for the eldest princess, who did not dare to look at them. All the noble families and sect masters of powerful sects were gathered here. There were at least 1,000 of them. The 12 marquises were definitely not the only golden immortal expert. The aura of the primordial gods was terrifying. The aura of the primordial gods made even golden immortals feel pressured. They were the true pillars of the celestial empire. In the event of a war, these primordial gods could increase the overall strength of the celestial empire's army. It was even more powerful than Emperor Ye's army. Tap tap tap. The 1,000 of them quickly entered the inner palace and headed straight for the imperial capital. The immortal emperor was already sitting on the throne, looking down from above. Emperor Taihao stood beside him. The majestic imperial capital was filled with divine aura. No one dared to have any blasphemous thoughts. The moment the marquises and the various kings entered the palace, the marquises, primordial gods, and the patriarchs of ancient sects all knelt down on one knee. The others, on the other hand, did not dare to slack off. "Greetings, Lord Immortal Emperor." The 13 marquises and the 4 primordial gods stood side by side at the front. Only Yi Qinghan was at the initial stage of the mystic immortal realm. He did not fit in, but no one dared to look down on him. The imperial uncles stood in the 2nd row, the kings stood in the 3rd row, and the leaders of the various clans stood together. The princes were in the 4th row, and the princesses were already standing outside the palace. "You may rise." Immortal Emperor Qing Zun swept his gaze across the palace and said in a deep voice, "Whoosh." The 13 marquises and the 4 primordial gods stood up. Only then did the imperial uncles dare to stand up. Yi Qinghan's expression was calm. He glanced around and found it hard to breathe from the auras of the 4 immemorial ancient god bloodline god priests. They were from a powerful immemorial race, and were enemies of the Yen clan. They couldn't sense his Yen clan bloodline because of the marquee robe and shroud, but the bloodline of these 4 immemorial ancient god bloodline god priests was exposed. At this moment, Immortal Emperor Qing Zun glanced at the North vanquishing monarch and found that he was expressionless. He did not say that he wanted to compete for the crown prince's position. Why did the divination say that he was the crown prince? Immortal Emperor Qing Zun was confused. He was sure that the divination would not be wrong. After all, he was an immortal emperor. If the divination was wrong, he would have died long ago. Today, I summoned all of you here to confer the crown prince's position. The princes can recommend themselves, the marquises and primordial gods can also recommend. Let me broaden my horizons and find the best successor. Immortal Emperor Qing Zun said in a deep voice. The immortal emperor's aura was terrifying. No one dared to recommend themselves, and the marquises did not take the initiative to speak. Recommending the crown prince was not a good job. If the recommendation was wrong, their life would be over. Whoosh! Just as the old marquises did not move, Yi Qinghan slowly took 2 steps forward and bowed. Eating from the monarch and sharing the monarch's burdens. This lowly one is greatly favored by the immortal emperor. I am willing to recommend a candidate for the crown prince's position. Immortal Emperor Qing Zun smiled and said indifferently, conferring you the title of heaven-suppressing marquis was indeed the right choice. Others did not dare to speak, but you were the first to speak. I did not misjudge you. Not bad, eating from the monarch and sharing the monarch's burdens. Yi Qinghan turned around and looked at the kings and princes. When he glanced at Xianyuan Zhitsong, he saw the anticipation in his eyes. Yi Qinghan felt a bit complicated. Chapter 2546. When their eyes met, the anticipation in Xianyuan Zhitsong's eyes made Yi Qinghan feel a bit apologetic. After all, Xianyuan Zhitsong and Xianyuan Qingyun had helped him, even if they were selfish. All the kings looked at Yi Qinghan expectantly because Yi Qinghan hadn't said who he would support, so everyone had a chance. I recommend the first prince, North Vanquishing Monarch. After these words, the hall fell into a dead silence. No one thought that Yi Qinghan would recommend a prince that had almost no chance of being conferred the title. Xianyuan Zhitsong was stunned. He had dreamt of Yi Qinghan recommending him to become the crown prince many times, but he didn't think it would end like this. Xianyuan God was also stunned. He looked back at Xianyuan Qingyun and found that she kept her head down and didn't look at him. The third and second princes were stunned at first, but then they smiled. Prince Zhitsong was their biggest enemy. If Yi Qinghan didn't recommend him, then they would have a chance. Even though Yi Qinghan was the heaven-suppressing marquis and had a high position, he chose the first prince, North Vanquishing Monarch, which was the same as giving up on the crown prince. Those who weren't conferred the title of king basically lost the chance to be conferred the title of crown prince. This had always been the rule. Many marquises looked at Yi Qinghan as if they were looking at an idiot. Only Lord Lingyang was expressionless. Dong! Immortal Emperor Qing Zun's fingertips suddenly knocked on the table as he looked at Yi Qinghan in surprise. He was only curious about the North Vanquishing Monarch in the divination, but he was even more curious about why Yi Qinghan chose him. Could it be that the divination changed because of Yi Qinghan? Why? Give this emperor a good explanation, or else. Immortal Emperor Qing Zun's eyes flashed coldly as he said, or else you will be the shortest marquis. Marquis Tai and the other old marquises were even looking forward to the scene of Yi Qinghan being killed. Yi Qinghan took a deep breath and handed over the book he recorded in the northern region with both hands. He said respectfully, Immortal Emperor, your humble servant was paid by the Emperor's monarch's salary, so I have to be responsible for all the people in the world. This is what I learned from my investigation in the northern region. North Vanquishing Monarch was. He went deep into the grassroots and understood the people. Under his management, the northern region was flourishing. He was loved and respected monarch. And the people king. King S. Is. Your humble's was known. Your Majesty. Was his. He. The said. S was. Emperor Tai Hao immediately took the book and respectfully placed it in front of immortal Emperor Qing Zun. Immortal Emperor Qing Zun coldly glanced at North vanquishing monarch and Yi Qinghan. He suspected that the two had reached some kind of agreement, but he still opened the book and read it carefully. There were praises and shortcomings. This was Yi Qinghan's evaluation of North vanquishing monarch. It was very pertinent. Immortal Emperor Qing Zun threw the records to the side and said coldly, "Being a king outside, going deep into the grassroots, understanding the will of the people, understanding the path of the monarch. This emperor has more than 20 sons. This is not enough to convince me." Yi Qinghan raised his eyes and looked straight at immortal Emperor Qing Zun. There was no fear in his eyes as he said firmly, "In such a vast immortal empire, there must be checks and balances. All the royal uncles have the bearing of a wise ruler, including the princes. In this world, there are not many who are more outstanding than them. After all, the blood of the immortal emperor flows in their veins. However, compared to the other princes, the North vanquishing prince has been leading the army for many years, so he is more mature and steady. He knows how to use people and is not flustered in the face of danger. This is his greatest advantage. As for the royal uncles, they are of the older generation. The reason why I did not recommend them is because they can check and balance each other. They can also guide the North vanquishing prince as his elders. If the North vanquishing prince is not in the immortal empire, the North vanquishing prince will not be a problem." The silence in the hall was enough to make one's scalp numb. Even the most favored marquis was facing death. Immortal Emperor Qing Zun and Yi Qinghan looked at each other, but Yi Qinghan didn't look back and didn't panic at all. "Heaven vanquishing marquis, you dare to look at this emperor at such a young age? You dare to say that you have no selfish motives? Did I put you in an important position just for your selfish motives?" Immortal Emperor Qing Zun questioned angrily. Yi Qinghan got down on one knee and cupped his fists. "Immortal Emperor, I do have selfish motives. The North vanquishing prince is connected to the heaven-suppressing prefecture, so it is better to be on good terms with him. However, if I was purely trying to curry favor with the crown prince, I can definitely recommend Prince Zhitsong to become the crown prince's brother-in-law. However, I know that my current status and glory are all bestowed by your majesty, so I must not let you down. This is the main reason why I recommended the North vanquishing prince. Furthermore, I know that being close to the emperor is like being close to a tiger. If I wanted to do this purely for my own benefits, I could have stayed neutral and acted as if I was blindly loyal to you. But wouldn't your majesty lose a capable assistant? Your majesty is busy and needs a good crown prince to help you control the immortal empire. So, even if your majesty is suspicious and angry, I am willing to take the responsibility. If worst comes to worst, I will just take off this marquis robe. If I am afraid of death, I would have died in the North Divine region. There is no need for me to be buried in your majesty's hands." Yi Qinghan's words were sonorous and forceful. They were as heavy as thunder and extremely fierce. No one thought that Yi Qinghan would dare to argue with immortal Emperor Qing Zun, and in such a forceful manner. Many people smirked as if they could already see Yi Qinghan being killed. Immortal Emperor Qing Zun looked at North vanquishing prince's serious expression and Yi Qinghan's firm attitude and changed his mind. "How long have you known North vanquishing prince? How well do you know him?" Immortal Emperor Qing Zun softened his attitude and asked coldly. Yi Qinghan turned to look at Tang Jiao and said calmly, "It doesn't matter if I know North vanquishing prince or not. Fairy Tang Jiao has the bloodline of a primordial ancient god. Her bloodline is noble and she will not lie. Moreover, her Tang family is very close to North vanquishing prince and is a selfless friend. I would like to ask Fairy Tang Jiao, what is your evaluation of North vanquishing prince?" Tang Jiao was stunned. She did not expect Yi Qinghan to drag her into this. Yi Qinghan said confidently, Fairy Tang Jiao and I have a grudge against each other. Many people know about it. I don't think she will speak for me. She is speaking from the bottom of her heart. If she says that North Vanquishing Prince is not a wise prince, I will accept the punishment without any complaints. Hua. Tang Jiao represented the Tang clan, the immemorial ancient god clan, and also the immemorial ancient god of fire. Her status was equivalent to a marquis, but she didn't have the title of marquis. She slowly stepped forward, knelt down in front of the immortal emperor, and said respectfully, "This humble servant once passed by the Northern Guard District, and all the living beings in the Northern Guard District praised immortal emperor's wisdom and bestowed the North Vanquishing King to them as their lord. The North Vanquishing King understands the will of the people and has great achievements, and is deeply loved by the people. I didn't believe it at the time, so I specially investigated and found that the North Vanquishing King used some old kings as civil officials and the elites of the younger generation as military officials. The civil officials could govern the world, and the military officials could defend the borders. The Northern Guard District has people to rely on, and the young are taken care of. There are many public welfare centers in the Northern Guard District, and I have seen all of this with my own eyes. Your Majesty, although the North Vanquishing King is not as wise as you, this humble servant is sure that he is a wise king and can help your Majesty share your worries." Immortal Emperor Qing Zun's expression became much better after hearing Tang Jiao's words. Chapter 2547. Immortal Emperor Qing Zun seemed to have his own concerns, not because of Yi Qinghan, but because of himself. That was why he didn't want to make North Vanquishing Prince the crown prince. "Yi Qinghan, if you don't make North Vanquishing Prince, I'll give you another chance. Who will you recommend?" Immortal Emperor Qing Zun asked calmly. Yi Qinghan shook his head and said bluntly, "I only recommend the best. If your Majesty doesn't want North Vanquishing Prince, then I'll remain neutral. As long as your Majesty chooses, I'll be loyal to him." "What about Zhutsong? Is he really that unbearable? He doesn't even want to recommend him?" Immortal Emperor Qing Zun didn't understand Yi Qinghan's thoughts. At this moment, Prince Zhutsong was already angry, but he couldn't show it because of the situation. Yi Qinghan looked at Prince Zhutsong and knew what he was thinking. He took the opportunity to explain, "Prince Zhutsong and Princess Qingyun have helped me before, so I should recommend him. However, I know him well. Recommending him isn't helping him, it's harming him. Controlling a celestial empire requires courage, vision, ability, mental state, and so on. Prince Zhutsong is ambitious and capable, but his understanding of the monarch's Tao is a bit lacking. He's easily affected by emotions, which isn't good for his Tao heart and billions of citizens. He doesn't want the celestial empire and power, but the limit of the Tao. He probably doesn't even understand himself. If I recommend him to be the crown prince, he'll miss his ultimate goal for the sake of his country, and even the celestial empire. If he can see himself clearly, he won't blame me, so I won't recommend him. However, if he's in trouble one day, I'll be willing to die for him to repay his kindness." Xianyuan Zhutsong's heart trembled as he stared at Yi Qinghan. They looked at each other and saw that Yi Qinghan's eyes were clear. He wasn't lying. Xianyuan Zhutsong couldn't help but think quickly. "Indeed, the reason why I want the position of Crown Prince is because I need enough resources to reach the limits of Tao and reach the third level of indestructible golden immortal. I might even become an immortal emperor. It's not the so-called immortal kingdom or power. I've been going in the wrong direction. Fortunately, Yi Qinghan reminded me." Xianyuan Zhutsong immediately walked out and said respectfully, just as heaven-suppressing Marquis said, "I've been a bit obsessed with power these years, but I didn't know that the reason I wanted power was because I wanted to reach the limit of Tao and become your Majesty's right-hand man so that I could fight alongside you. Today, after hearing heaven-suppressing marquee words, I completely understood and almost hated heaven-suppressing marquee because of this. I hope your majesty and heaven-suppressing marquee will punish me. Ha 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 ha. Immortal Emperor Qing Zun laughed so loudly that no one dared to speak. Whoosh! Yi Qinghan quickly helped Xianyuan Zhetsong up and bowed. It's fine as long as Prince Zhetsong understands. At this moment, Xianyuan Xian God also sighed. They all thought that Yi Qinghan was ungrateful and gave up Xianyuan Zhetsong after reaching an agreement with North Vanquishing Monarch, but they didn't know that they were too narrow-minded. Xianyuan Qingyun saw that her father and brother had forgiven Yi Qinghan and completely let go of the worry in her heart. Heaven-suppressing Marquis, I didn't expect you to understand the monarch's Tao and my descendants better. Unfortunately, I won't make North Vanquishing Monarch the Crown Prince. He will be North Vanquishing Monarch for the rest of his life. Immortal Emperor Qing Zun said firmly. Prince Zhetsong gave up the position of Crown Prince and North Vanquishing Monarch was directly given up by Immortal Emperor Qing Zun. The second and third princes were immediately overjoyed. It seemed like one of them would become the Crown Prince. Yi Qinghan was silent. There must be a reason why Immortal Emperor Qing Zun was willing to make him a marquis but not the first prince. Thus, he didn't say anything else and stood to the side, waiting for the real Crown Prince to be born. North Vanquishing Monarch lowered his head and sighed. Is it because my parents died early and he's afraid that I won't be able to intimidate the other royal uncles and marquises? Or is it because of other reasons? At this moment, Immortal Emperor Qing Zun looked at Yi Qinghan and lightly said, Since I clearly rejected North Vanquishing Monarch and Zhetsong gave up, you can recommend another one. Yi Qinghan shook his head and calmly said, I said that I will only recommend the best and will not recommend anyone for the sake of benefits. I am responsible for the people of the world and your majesty's favor, so I will only watch and not say anything. Immortal Emperor Qing Zun frowned. He didn't expect Yi Qinghan to be so stubborn. What if I want you to recommend someone? Immortal Emperor Qing Zun asked. Yi Qinghan looked straight at Immortal Emperor Qing Zun and said in a deep voice, Then your majesty, please convince me why North Vanquishing Monarch can't be the Crown Prince. You're the first person who dares to ask me for a reason. Immortal Emperor Qing Zun calmly said. Yi Qinghan resolutely said, I am a man of great stature, so I will not be a subject who flatters you. If your majesty needs such a subject, there are many marquises in the world, and there are many in the palace. However, since your majesty has chosen me, I believe that you do not need such a flattering subject. You stinking brat, you're really my type. Immortal Emperor Qing Zun grinned out of anger because no one dared to talk back to him like this for many years. Yi Qinghan also smiled. He smiled with a clear conscience. After a long time, Immortal Emperor Qing Zun sighed and said, Because I promised Hongqin's parents to let him stay away from the court and be an eternal king, I rejected him as the crown prince. Xianyuan Hongqin was naturally the name of the crown prince, the North Vanquishing Monarch. However, this name was almost forgotten by others. He was as dazzling as a rainbow, yet he was silent on the horizon, far away from the court and an eternal king. This was the hope and love of Hongqin's parents for their son. Immortal Emperor Qing Zun also respected his parents' wishes. It was clear that the emperor didn't love the North Vanquishing Monarch. It was because he loved him too much. He was afraid that Hongqin would be harmed by villains, so he wanted him to leave this filthy place. Many marquises and royal uncles trembled and lowered their heads when the North Vanquishing Monarch's parents were brought up. Outside of the younger generation, everyone else was silent. The young ones didn't know why. Yi Qinghan was smart enough to guess the reason after seeing the expressions of the older generation. The North Vanquishing Monarch's father must be a supreme character. However, He was envied by a mediocre person and died an unnatural death. Immortal Emperor Qing Zun was furious and executed this mediocre person in an extreme manner. This was why the older generation was so afraid. Yi Qinghan didn't expect that his persistence would remind immortal Emperor Qing Zun of such unbearable memories. Do you still want to persist? Immortal Emperor Qing Zun stared at Yi Qinghan and asked again. Yi Qinghan replied firmly, being born in the imperial family, dying for the country and dying for the people is an honor. It's just like how a general can die without regrets on the battlefield. Moreover, I feel that the border where the North vanquishing monarch lives is not as safe as the court. If your majesty loves the North vanquishing monarch, why don't you listen to his thoughts? Immortal Emperor Qing Zun looked at the North vanquishing monarch and asked, Hongqian, what are your thoughts? Tell this emperor directly. Hua. The North vanquishing monarch calmly walked out and respectfully said, Your Majesty, Hongqian lost his parents when he was young. My impression of them is very faint. However, my father's words have always been imprinted in my heart. He told me that as the crown prince, I must shoulder the burden of the emperor and share the troubles of the people. I have always remembered this in my heart. All these years, I have been sharing the troubles of the people, but I have never been able to shoulder your Majesty's worries. I feel guilty. Chapter 2548. As the Crown Prince, he had to shoulder the burden of the king and share the burden of the people. Immortal Emperor Qing Zun's eyes turned red when he heard this. In his life, he thought his eldest son was the best. Unfortunately, he died young and was killed by a traitor. He didn't even know if his enemies were eliminated. Phew, Immortal Emperor Qing Zun leaned on the dragon throne and sighed. He whispered, When your father died, I didn't have time to appear. Your mother only left me with her last words before she went to find your father. Leave the court and be the king forever. Since this emperor has agreed, I don't want to change my mind. This sentence cut off Xianyuan Hongqian's thoughts. However, North vanquishing monarch didn't complain anymore and respected Immortal Emperor Qing Zun even more. Hongqian respects your majesty and father and mother's wishes. Xianyuan Hongqian didn't refute. Some things were not so stubborn. It was his mother's wish to leave the court. Since Immortal Emperor Qing Zun listened, how could he not be satisfied? Immortal Emperor Qing Zun took a deep breath and looked down at the hall. He said coldly, If my eldest son was still alive, why would I need to make him the crown prince? This emperor can cultivate in peace and step on the ancestor's throne. The marquises didn't dare to raise their heads. The kings didn't dare to utter a word. The third prince was even more terrified. The immemorial shrine didn't say anything because they only supported the crown prince and didn't participate in the court. Do the other marquises have better candidates? Immortal Emperor Qing Zun glanced at the marquises and kings. It seemed like they still didn't want North vanquishing monarch to participate in the court. Hua. Xianyuan Tai immediately seized the opportunity and stepped forward to say, Although North vanquishing prince is the best candidate, your majesty cannot bear to see him get hurt. This humble subject is willing to recommend a prince slightly inferior to North vanquishing prince. He is the second prince. Although he is not as good as North vanquishing prince in all aspects, he is definitely far superior to the other princes. His reputation in his fief is also quite good. He has a good relationship with the other princes, and several marquises are quite optimistic about him. The second prince, Xianyuan Feihe's face was flushed. He went forward and knelt down. He said respectfully, Your Majesty, although my grandson isn't as talented as my eldest brother, he's still improving. I hope you can give me a chance. I support Prince Feihe. This subject, Zhenan Ho, supports Her Highness Fei He. Central Prefecture's king supports Imperial Brother Feihe. Xianyuan Feihe's network immediately came out. 3 marquises, 17 kings, and 6 royal uncles. This was quite a big force. At this moment, Marquis Zhenling from the northwest stepped forward and said respectfully, "Your Majesty, 3rd Prince Lin Hao's achievements are obvious to all. I feel that he is qualified to be the crown prince." Whoosh! Another wave of people came forward. The 2 princes were the elites of the imperial capital all year round, after all, so they had a solid foundation. When North Vanquishing Prince was recommended, almost no one supported him. But when these 2 princes were recommended, they were all supporters. The 2nd prince, Fei He, and the 3rd prince, Lin Hao, were both on Immortal Emperor Qing Zun's list of candidates, but he needed to listen to the audience. The marquises he trusted in his heart hadn't expressed their opinions yet, so he was still hesitating. Imperial Brother Taihao, Big Boss Ling Yang, Big Boss Ping Yang, the 4 primordial gods, and Tang Jiao represented the Tang family. They were the main force, and they could decide who the crown prince would be. Ling Yang, Ping Yang, the 4 primordial gods, Taihao, Jiao, what do you think? Immortal Emperor Qing Zun asked calmly. Ling Yang took a deep breath, stepped forward, and bowed. Your Majesty, I have followed you since I was a child, and I have always been blindly loyal. I have only carried out your orders, and I have never worried for you. My decision today may anger your Majesty, but I am willing to accept any punishment. Looks like you have someone to recommend as well. Tell me. Immortal Emperor Qing Zun was surprised. Ling Yang would have said that she would protect whoever His Majesty chose, but now she had her own opinion. Big Boss Ling Yang bowed and said, I recommend North Vanquishing Prince. Sister-in-law's last wish was to protect North Vanquishing Prince, but it is the misfortune of our celestial nation to have him stay at the border. If such a wise king cannot help your Majesty, it is also the misfortune of us subjects. Ling Yang is willing to support His Majesty, and I am willing to protect him with my life. Immortal Emperor Qing Zun frowned. He did not expect Ling Yang to insist on recommending North Vanquishing Prince. At this moment, Tang Jiao also stepped forward and said respectfully, Your Majesty, Jiao represents the Tang family in recommending North Vanquishing Prince. Before coming here, Grandpa told me that if your Majesty allowed it, he would protect North Vanquishing Prince with his life. I did not expect Heaven's suppressing Marquis to recommend him first. This shows that North Vanquishing Prince is indeed a good choice. Your Majesty, please reconsider. Golden Immortal Ping Yang was an old man with white hair and a youthful complexion. To be respected by the Immortal Emperor, he must be an elite of his generation. He always thought things through carefully and thought about the celestial nation wholeheartedly. Your Majesty, I also recommend North Vanquishing Prince. I am willing to give up my fief and guard the imperial capital with my life to ensure North Vanquishing Prince's safety, Big Boss Ping Yang said in a deep voice. The 4 immemorial ancient gods looked at each other and also stepped forward. Like father, like son. We believe that Wisdom King's son is worthy of our recommendation. Your Majesty, please reconsider. We 4 immemorial ancient gods are willing to send the chief elites of our clans to ensure North Vanquishing Prince's safety. Your Majesty, you can rest assured. Emperor Taihao smiled and bowed. Elder brother, I also think that North Vanquishing Prince is the best candidate. There is no need to keep him at the border to protect him. Once war breaks out, with Hongqin's personality, he will definitely choose to sacrifice himself for the country. Wouldn't it be a pity for such a wise ruler to die at the border? Elder brother, please reconsider. Yi Qinghan stepped forward again and bowed. Your Majesty, please reconsider. I am just a newly conferred Marquis. There is no need for me to offend you or make you angry. I can just stand on the side and see who has the opportunity to recommend. However, I insist on recommending North Vanquishing Prince, a hopeless vassal at the border, because I feel that my eyes are never wrong. North Vanquishing Prince is definitely a wise ruler. He will not fail your Majesty's country." The other marquises were dumbfounded. The other marquises seemed to have realized that the Crown Prince was likely to be the hopeless North Vanquishing Prince. The second prince and the third prince were stunned and at a loss. None of them had thought that North Vanquishing Prince would intervene. At this moment, Xianyuan Xianshen stepped forward and said, "I am willing to assist North Vanquishing Prince. Your Majesty, please reconsider." The first imperial uncle expressed his position. Then, at least 6 imperial uncles expressed their willingness to support North Vanquishing Prince. 3 or 4 marquises, who were like fence-sitters, did not want to offend him, but now they took the initiative to step forward and say in unison, "We are willing to assist North Vanquishing Prince." The immemorial Sword Spirit Sect is willing to assist North Vanquishing Prince. The immemorial Qin family is willing to assist North Vanquishing Prince. Immemorial, hundreds of wealthy families and immemorial strong sects stepped forward and expressed their willingness to assist North Vanquishing Prince. They received more support than the other 2 princes. Wealthy families, immemorial strong sects, and the bloodline of the immemorial ancient gods represented the world, the hearts of the people. North Vanquishing Prince's eyes were red and full of gratitude. Looking at Yi Qinghan's back, his eyes were full of gratitude. If Yi Qinghan had not risked his life to insist on recommending him, this situation would not have happened. No one was not afraid of death, especially the Marquis. But Yi Qinghan was not afraid of death. In fact, he understood the way of the Emperor. As the Emperor, he would definitely choose the best successor. Not even the slightest flaw would be tolerated. Therefore, he stood his ground and protected North Vanquishing Prince. Immortal Emperor Qing Zun saw that more than half of the people supported North Vanquishing Prince. There was joy in his eyes. It was the happiness of being recognized. If you are in heaven, you should be very happy to see Hongqian being praised so highly. Immortal Emperor Qing Zun said to himself. Chapter 2549. Immortal Emperor Qing Zun closed his eyes and murmured to himself emotionlessly. At this moment the hall was dead silent. No one dared to say a word because pushing North Vanquishing Immortal Emperor was the same as overturning his decision. Perhaps only Yi Qinghan dared to commit the crime of disobedience. The second and third prince's expressions were extremely ugly. However, Prince Zhetsong let go of North Vanquishing Immortal Emperor. More than half of the people were on North Vanquishing Immortal Emperor's side. After a long time, Immortal Emperor Qing Zun opened his eyes and looked at North Vanquishing Immortal Emperor. North Vanquishing Immortal Emperor looked straight ahead and silently waited for Immortal Emperor Qing Zun's answer. "Hongqian, do you regret this?" Immortal Emperor Qing Zun asked in a deep voice. North Vanquishing Immortal Emperor's expression was firm as he said in a deep voice, "Hongqian will never regret this." Whoosh! Immortal Emperor Qing Zun stood up with a monstrous aura. He looked down at the 100 kings and said in a dignified manner, "Let's go to the king's graveyard." Yes. The 1,000 people's expressions changed, but they quickly stood up to respond. The king's graveyard was the tomb of the Xian Yuan imperial family. It was the place where the imperial family's sacrifices were buried. Whoosh! Immortal Emperor Qing Zun waved his hand and the 1,000 experts lost control and were swept away. His figure flashed and appeared in the imperial tombs behind the imperial capital. There were many tombstones. Some were the tombstones of generals who died in battle. Some were the tombstones of princes who sacrificed themselves. Those without great merit were not qualified to enter the imperial tombs. At the highest point of the tombstones there were 3 tombstones. They were the tombstones of Immortal Emperor Qing Zun's father. There were 2 more tombstones. One was Hongqian's father's tombstone and the other was his mother's tombstone. Under normal circumstances, the wives and partners of imperial uncles were not qualified to enter the imperial tombs. However, his mother was not only qualified but also above many tombstones. This showed how much immortal Emperor Qing Zun respected him. A woman of great merit can allow a man to stand at the peak and look down on the world. And Consort Yu, Hongqin's birth mother, is such a peerless woman. For this emperor to have such a daughter-in-law is this emperor's honor. She followed my son, and although my heart ached, I did not dare to stop her. Her Tao heart is firmer and purer than this emperor's. Everyone kneel. King Yu, concubine Yu. Whoosh! At this moment, all the nobles and monarchs were kneeling on the ground with great respect. Back then, Grand Uncle was the son of an immortal emperor. His glory was unparalleled. Consort Yu was the mother of the world and ruled the immortal kingdom in her father's stead. She never made a single mistake. Unfortunately, she died too early, leaving the world with regret. Hongqin, come in front of your parents and tell them how firm your will is. Your fate will be decided by your parents. Immortal Emperor Qing Zun said solemnly. Whoosh! North vanquishing prince hadn't paid his respects to his parents for a long time. At this moment, he was overwhelmed by his emotions. Tears rolled down his cheeks as he bent his knees and knelt in front of the two tombstones. Father, mother, I'm here to see you. North vanquishing prince propped his hands on the ground and respectfully kowtowed 9 times. Sadness filled the air. Yi Qinghan looked at North vanquishing prince's back and became even more determined. Having a good teammate was much better than having countless useless teammates. If the heaven-suppressing prefecture district wanted to live a peaceful life, they must have a prosperous immortal kingdom to protect them. North vanquishing prince was the best choice. Xianyuan Hongqin looked at his parents' tombstones and said respectfully, "Today, His Majesty crowned me as the Crown Prince. Father, you have taught me that as the Crown Prince, I must worry for His Majesty and share the troubles of the people. I will remember this. Father, mother, please remind me whether to let Hongqin guard the borders or let me control the immortal kingdom to share His Majesty's worries and share the troubles of the people." Whoosh! Woo! Without any wind, the originally peaceful imperial tomb was suddenly filled with a violent gust of wind, causing everyone's hair to stand on end. No wind would dare to cause trouble in front of an immortal emperor. This gust of wind was a little incomprehensible. Immortal Emperor Qing Zun smiled and said with a hoarse voice, "I failed to protect you two back then. Today, I promise you that I will protect Hongqin. My son, my daughter-in-law, rest in peace. I know what to do now." The strange gust of wind dissipated as if nothing had happened. At this moment, even Yi Qinghan felt his hair stand on end. He was at the peak of the mystic immortal realm, but he didn't feel any wind elemental fluctuations. Where did this gust of wind come from? However, the 4 primordial divine priests, Elder Ling Yang, Elder Ping Yang, and Emperor Taihao, who were standing at the very front, trembled. They bowed deeply to Consort Yu's tombstone. Today, in front of the martyrs of the immortal kingdom, the various nobles and kings, the leaders of the various noble clans and powerful sects, as well as the 4 primordial divine priests, I declare that Xianyuan Hongqin is to be the crown prince. On the day I leave the immortal kingdom, he will be crowned as the ruler of the immortal kingdom. All nobles, kings, and all living beings will respect him. Anyone who dares to defy me will be killed without mercy." Immortal Emperor Qing Zun looked down at the masses. His voice reverberated throughout the entire immortal kingdom and didn't dissipate for a long time. This time, it wasn't just the crown prince, but the ruler of the immortal kingdom. Everyone was stunned. Even the North vanquishing prince was shocked. Once he was crowned as the ruler of the immortal kingdom, it meant that there would be no more crown princes. From today onwards, the ruler of the immortal kingdom would be the North vanquishing prince, Xianyuan Hongqin. The nobles' expressions changed drastically. They didn't understand why immortal Emperor Qing Zun would give such an order. 5 primordial divine descendants, heed my command. The 4 primordial divine priests and Tang Jiao trembled. They immediately stepped forward and bowed. The 4 of you have followed me for countless years. I am grateful. Today, I will crown the 4 primordial divine descendants as the primordial divine Gold King, the primordial divine Wood King, the primordial divine Wind King, and the primordial divine Water King. They will listen to Hongqin's orders and protect him. The 4 old men immediately said respectfully, "This old servant obeys the immortal emperor's command. Tang Jiao, I will crown you as the flame consort, the mother of the world. Are you willing?" Immortal Emperor Qing Zun asked in a deep voice. Tang Jiao's eyes narrowed. This was a marriage. If Xianyuan Hongqin was the king, she would be the mother of the country. There was nothing more glorious than this. Jiao obeys the immortal emperor's command and will assist the king. I will not embarrass consort you and mother you. Tang Jiao respectfully knelt beside North vanquishing prince and kowtowed to consort you and prince you. Immortal Emperor Qing Zun looked around before looking at Ling Yang and Ping Yang. He said in a deep voice, "Ling Yang and Ping Yang, I confer upon you the titles of Ping Tian and Ping Yang Marquises. You will have 10 golden immortal marquises and 24 royal marquises. You will also be bestowed with 2 immortal slaying swords. You will be able to slay marquises and kings, while you will be able to quell rebellions." Whoosh! The 2 immortal swords shone with immortal light and immortal emperor techniques surged. Even the golden immortal bigwigs didn't dare to be impudent. Whoosh whoosh! The 2 immortal slaying swords appeared in the 2 bigwigs' hands, adding to their aura. Whoosh! Ping Yang and Ling Yang were extremely excited. They respectfully knelt down and said, "Thank you for your trust, Your Majesty. We will die without regrets. We will definitely protect the immortal empire for Your Majesty." Finally, immortal Emperor Qing Zun looked at Yi Qinghan with admiration in his eyes. "Heaven vanquishing Marquis, Flame King, come forward and listen to my command." Chapter 2550. Heaven suppressing Marquis, Flame King, come forward and receive your orders. Immortal Emperor Qing Zun's words shook the vassals. If they were to receive orders now, they would definitely be conferred titles. They were already heaven-suppressing Marquis and Flame King at such a young age. Could they be conferred the title of first-grade Marquis like Ling Yang? Hua! Da-da-da! Yi Qinghan and Yen Ao stepped forward and knelt on one knee. They bowed and said, "Yes, Your Majesty." Immortal Emperor Qing Zun looked at the 2 and said solemnly, "I watched the last battle of the North God region, and I can see that you 2 are loyal. That's why I made an exception and conferred the titles of Marquis and King. And now, Yi Qinghan, you are recommending Hongqin with your life. This emperor is even more gratified." Yi Qinghan said firmly, "Your Majesty is indeed doing this for the Celestial Empire. I came from a small realm and I know how difficult it is to live in this world. It is important to have a wise ruler. North Suppressing King is a wise ruler in my heart. That's why I recommend him with my life. Although I will benefit from being conferred the title of king, that's not important. What's important is that the world be at peace. Only with a strong celestial empire can my heaven-suppressing prefecture district live in peace." Good. At least you're not like some people who harm others without benefiting themselves. Immortal Emperor Qing Zun looked around and said, "Do you know why I conferred you the title of heaven-suppressing Marquis?" Yi Qinghan shook his head and said softly, "Your Majesty, Your Majesty, Your Majesty, I dare not guess. Because I know that I will be leaving the Celestial Empire for a very long time. I might not even be able to return. That's why I chose you to replace Dijintian." Immortal Emperor Qing Zun said solemnly. Ling Yang was only a first-grade Marquis, while Yi Qinghan was the heaven-suppressing Marquis. It was obvious that he wanted Yi Qinghan to suppress Ling Yang. At this moment, even Ling Yang was shocked. She looked at immortal Emperor Qing Zun and Yi Qinghan in shock. The marquises and kings were even more shocked. Could it be that Yi Qinghan's position was higher than Ling Yang's? Yi Qinghan lowered his head and accepted the title without saying a word. I confer you the title of heaven-suppressing first-class marquis, a big shot. I bestow you with a heaven-suppressing long saber, which can kill big shots and golden immortals. But I only give you the power to attack 3 times, so you have to use it carefully. Whoosh! Immortal Emperor Qing Zun waved his hand, causing the void to crack. A golden saber stood proudly in the air, similar to the 7 feet heavy craze. However, its aura was much stronger. Although the primordial chaos saber embryo could be upgraded, it hadn't reached this level yet. Heaven-suppressing saber. An item produced by an immortal emperor was definitely of high quality. It contained 3 emperor moves, and only Yi Qinghan could use them. 3 times was equivalent to killing 3 golden immortals, including those at the 3rd realm. Yi Qinghan's finger trembled. He was also shocked by the reward. This was equivalent to an immortal emperor protecting him 3 times. Perhaps even the revered Dragon Marquis might not be able to withstand a single slash. Thank you, Immortal Emperor. I will protect the Celestial Empire and wait for your Majesty's return. Yi Qinghan took a deep breath and raised his hands to the sky, waiting for the heaven-suppressing wild saber to fall. Boom! Whoosh! The heaven-suppressing long saber broke through the void and appeared above Yi Qinghan's head. It slowly landed in his hand, as heavy as a galaxy. After 3 times, it would also become a super golden immortal level immortal weapon. But by then, Yi Qinghan wouldn't be able to use it, but it could still be used as a decoration. Yi Qinghan's veins bulged and his right arm broke open. Blood bathed the wild saber, and it quickly recognized him as its master. But it was still too heavy to be kept in his body. This super immortal weapon wasn't something Yi Qinghan could control. Unfortunately, he only had 3 chances, but these 3 chances were enough to intimidate the kings and experts of all races. Whoosh! Boom! Another 5 immortal weapons: metal, wood, water, fire, and wind. They could strengthen the cultivation of the 4 new immemorial kings and Tang Jiao, and protect Crown Prince Hongqian. It seemed like the immortal emperor had officially abdicated this time. Even if he returned, he wouldn't take over the Celestial Empire. Everyone had been bestowed their titles, and only Yan Ao, the Flame King, was still waiting. Immortal Emperor Qing Zun looked at Yan Ao and pondered for a long time. Then, he said, "Flame King, the battle in the North Divine region made you famous in the immortal world. You fought against 3 million venerated dragon army, blood dragon guards, and azure dragon guards with only 38,000 casualties. This battle result is comparable to venerated dragon Marquis. I believe that if you were a golden immortal, even if venerated dragon Marquis himself came, he wouldn't be able to win against your army. Such a military saint is what the Celestial Empire lacks. So today, I officially confer you the title of Flame King Marquis. You will be in charge of all the armies in the north of the imperial capital. You will only be under the command of heaven-suppressing Marquis, Taihao, and Hongqian." Hiss hiss hiss. How was this the right of a first-grade Marquis? Not even Yi Qinghan had the right to command all the armies in the north of the Celestial Empire. Only the north vanquishing Marquis had this right. Everyone gasped and looked at Yan Ao in disbelief. He was no weaker than Yi Qinghan, the heaven-suppressing Marquis. Immortal Emperor Qing Zun was no fool. If he wanted to command Yan Ao, either Taihao or Hongqian would be needed. Otherwise, Yi Qinghan alone wouldn't be able to command him. This was equivalent to cutting off Yi Qinghan's chance to command Yan Ao. However, Yi Qinghan never thought of rebelling against the Qing Zun Immortal Empire. The celestial empire and the heaven-suppressing prefecture were bound together. He wouldn't do something so stupid. Wah! The Ho Shuaihu talisman seal shone with immortal light and law. It contained the immortal emperor's aura and slowly appeared beside Yen Ao. Yen Ao received it with both hands and said respectfully, "Yes, Your Majesty. Yen Ao will guard the North Divine region for Your Majesty." At this moment, Marquis Tai and the other marquises were extremely jealous. The other marquises could only be envious. Such glory was taken by two juniors. However, even Ling Yang admired Yen Ao's leadership. Even Emperor Taihao felt ashamed of himself. Thus, Yen Ao deserved to be a first-grade marquis, and no one dared to refute him. "I've already prepared your marquis robe for you. Take it. There's no need for the ceremony. I don't have much time." Immortal Emperor Qing Zun threw out a luxurious marquis robe. It was made of the same material as Yi Qinghan's marquis robe. The Tiger Commander's seal was an offensive weapon. Thus, Immortal Emperor Qing Zun didn't give Yen Ao a spear. "Now, I announce that Princess Xianyuan Qingyun will be married to the heaven-suppressing Marquis. 7th Princess Xianyuan Lingjun will be married to Marquis Yenjun. The wedding will be celebrated," Immortal Emperor Qing Zun said calmly. As soon as he said that, the second and third prince's eyes turned green. They thought they could be crowned as the crown prince, but they didn't even get anything. In fact, who wouldn't be jealous at this moment? However, they had to have the ability to get anything. Everyone was jealous of Yi Qinghan, but no one was jealous of Yen Ao. After all, Yen Ao's ability was not the bravado of an ordinary man. Instead, he was a martial saint. However, the fact that he was betrothed to Xianyuan Lingjun still caused quite a few people to be envious, jealous, and hateful. This was because Xianyuan Lingjun was one of the three great beauties of the celestial nation. Tang Jiayao and Xianyuan Qingyun were not included in the list. Of the three great beauties of the celestial nation, the first was the owner. The second was the 7th Princess Xianyuan Lingjun. The third one had disappeared from the world for a long time. It was said that she was trying to break through to the golden immortal realm. She was both beautiful and talented. At this moment, many people were staring at Yi Qinghan. They wanted nothing more than to glare him to death. Yi Qinghan was just a brute. What right did he have to replace Dijintian? What right did he have to be married by the immortal emperor? Yi Qinghan and Yen Ao got up and stood side by side. One held the heaven-suppressing saber, while the other held the Tiger Talisman Commander's seal. Their auras were transcendent, and their might was no longer the same as before. Now they held high positions in place of Dijintian, and were comparable to Taihao, Lingyang, Pingyang, and the other four immemorial gods. Chapter 25:51. The grand ceremony was held in the Imperial Mausoleum and was not announced to the public. Only this group of people knew about it. Actually, the other four great immortal empires were the same. They were promoting true talents and conferring the title of Crown Prince. The battle between the 5 immortal emperors was about to start. Every battle between the 5 immortal emperors was very fierce. Once they left, they would need at least 100,000 years to return. The most frightening thing was that every time they returned, they would be heavily injured and almost died. However, every time they fought, they would improve greatly. Although the immortal emperors were strong, they were not as strong as the immemorial immortal emperors. The immemorial immortal emperors were already heaven-defying, tearing apart the ancient immortal world and reversing the flow of stars. The current 5 immortal emperors were far from being as exaggerated as the past. The day of the immortal emperor's departure was getting closer and closer. Immortal Emperor Qing Zun no longer had the time to preside over Yi Qinghan and Yen Ao's marriage. In order to ensure the marriage between the two and the royal family, he could only make simple arrangements and personally witness the marriage in front of the nobles. Xianyuan Lingjun was indeed indescribably beautiful. She could almost be compared to the owner. However, she lacked some mature charm. However, she also had some youthful purity. As one of the three great beauties of the immortal empire, she was one level higher than Xianyuan Qingyun. Yi Qinghan couldn't reject the marriage alliance. Immortal Emperor Qing Zun had to agree to it in order to restrain the two of them, especially Yen Ao, the Marquis Yen Jun, who controlled all the armies in the north. As the second great beauty of the immortal empire and the most doted seventh princess, Xianyuan Lingjun had the right to choose her husband. However, she had also seen Yen Ao's last battle and was shocked by his wisdom. In the end, she did not refuse immortal Emperor Qing Zun's decision. It was supposed to be a grand wedding, but under the auspices of immortal Emperor Qing Zun, it was just a simple formality and ended just like that. The four entered the bridal chamber. On the second day, immortal Emperor Qing Zun saw Xianyuan Qingyun and Xianyuan Lingjun and knew that they had entered the bridal chamber. Only then did he feel relieved and nodded. Heaven's suppression, Marquis, my return might be the day you enter the three forbidden grounds. Do you want me to come back? Immortal Emperor Qing Zun found Yi Qinghan alone and calmly asked. Yi Qinghan bowed and said, I will welcome your majesty with a bow. In 100,000 years, I will definitely ascend to the golden immortal realm. When that time comes, I will venture into the three great deadlands without needing you to say anything. Ha ha ha! Immortal Emperor Qing Zun laughed uproariously. He stepped out of the void and directly vanished, leaving behind a golden beam of light that illuminated the mountains and rivers. The five immortal emperors left almost at the same time. They were all prepared to die. Their pursuit of the extreme Tao far exceeded these golden immortal emperors. Otherwise, they wouldn't have been able to become immortal emperors. The moment the five peak existences left the undying immortal world, some of the peak existences at the third level of the undying immortal world started to get restless. Once the five emperors left, the entire immortal world would be embroiled in war. This would last for at least tens of thousands of years. In the imperial court, Xianyuan Hongqian was dressed in a dragon robe. He automatically became the country lord. All the civil and military officials, as well as the leaders of the various prestigious clans and powerful sects of the immortal world, came to meet him. Xianyuan Hongqian was also a bold man. After enduring for so long, he naturally wanted to become the country lord. Previously, he had investigated many people and started to confer kings. They were all experts of the younger generation. He wanted to use them to go against the older generation of kings. At the very least, they could be considered as equals. They could control each other and not allow one side to dominate. In a short half a day, Xianyuan Hongqian conferred 18 young kings. They had high statuses and great power. Conferring kings and expressing goodwill to the older generation of marquises, emperor uncle and the various kings was done in one go. Yi Qinghan carried the heaven-suppressing saber on his back and presided over the imperial palace. Even the older generation of marquises didn't dare to be impudent. That heaven-suppressing saber didn't recognize people, only its master. Xianyuan Hongqian's first meeting with the officials was very successful. The sect heads of the powerful sects all declared their loyalty to him. With Taihao, Pingyang, Lingyang, and Yi Qinghan presiding over, there wouldn't be many problems. Xianyuan Hongqian looked down at the palace and said in a deep voice, History tells us that the day the immortal emperor leaves, the immortal realm will definitely become restless. This time, we won't take the initiative to attack, but we can't let other countries invade our celestial nation. This will depend on everyone. Aristocratic families and sects can build a private army of 1 million to defend against the invaders. You must not give up on your ancestral lands. As long as you can hold on for half a month, the celestial nation's army will come to your aid. We obey the country lord's orders. The various aristocratic families and sects were overjoyed. Previously, when the immortal emperor was still around, the aristocratic families and sects weren't allowed to build private armies. Now that they were allowed to build private armies, their power would rise again. If the borders are attacked, all the aristocratic families and sects nearby must immediately rush to the border. Those who dare to defy military orders and cause a disaster will be executed lightly. In the worst case, their entire family will be slaughtered, Xianyuan Hongchen said coldly. This sentence caused the leaders of the aristocratic families and sects in the imperial hall to shudder. At this moment, Ling Yang looked around and said in a deep voice, "Don't even think about being crowned king. With a private army, you can rule over a region and ignore the central government's orders. If anyone dares to mess around, it will be too late for regrets when this marquis arrives." Yes. Everyone bowed in response. Yi Qinghan looked at Xianyuan Tai and cupped his fists. "Marquis Tai, no matter how many personal grudges we have between us, we are all paid by the emperor. This marquis hopes that we can let bygones be bygones. Don't let your emotions affect your decisions and delay the war, harming the country and its people." Xianyuan Tai exhaled and bowed. With these words from the heaven-suppressing marquis, this marquis can rest assured. You can also rest assured. I am deeply favored by the immortal emperor and have already sworn to repay the country with my life. I have been through many battles and have never neglected my duty. This time I will definitely not. Yi Qinghan nodded, then swept his gaze over the other marquises and said in a deep voice, "Everyone here is a veteran marquis, so this marquis should not say too much. However, I would like to warn those with ulterior motives not to bully the Celestial Nation just because the Celestial Nation Lord's cultivation is insufficient. The Celestial Nation Lord is a man of great courage and talent. Controlling a Celestial Nation depends on strategy and fists. The Celestial Nation Lord has strategies, and I have fists. I am the Celestial Nation Lord's fist. If anyone dares to act recklessly, I might be even crueler than Marquis Ling Yang. Back when I tortured Sikong Tanlang to death, both seniors Ling Yang and Marquis Tai were present. Sikong Tanlang's death had already spread among the marquises and royal uncles. Everyone knew that Yi Qinghan was a ruthless person who would seek revenge for the smallest grievance. Those who offended him would definitely not have a good ending. Immortal Emperor Qing Zun saw that Yi Qinghan was ruthless enough to intimidate the marquises in the world, so he gave him the heaven-suppressing saber to suppress the heavens in his place. Don't worry, heaven-suppressing marquis. With the advent of chaos, we know our limits and will definitely not do anything that will cause chaos. Xianyuan God immediately stepped forward and cooperated. Whoosh! The marquises all bowed and said, "We will follow the teachings of the heaven-suppressing marquis." The country is the most important, the people are the most important, and the mountains and rivers are the most important. At this moment, Monarch Taihao didn't say anything but his face was full of smiles. With Yi Qinghan, Yan Ao, and Ling Yang here, he didn't need to do much. He only needed to be in charge of the Southern Army. Chapter 2552. The King's ceremony, in order to stabilize the Celestial Empire, was mainly about bestowing kings and deterrence. The young kings of the 4 ancient god temples' chief inheritances had arrived. They each received the immortal slaying sword and guarded Xianyuan Hongchen's surroundings. Everything was under their control, and anyone who wanted to approach had to get their permission. The 4 primordial kings and Tang Jiayao might not have the highest status, but they had the most authority. The nobles in the palace all left to prepare. Yan Ao took away all the detailed maps of the immortal world. Under Ling Yang's lead, he took over all the armies north of the imperial capital and began setting up the empire's defenses. Only Yi Qinghan remained in the imperial capital's imperial palace. The four primordial kings and Tang Jiao stood beside Xianyuan Hongchen, not daring to slack off. Xianyuan Hongchen was extremely grateful. He bowed and said, "I haven't had the chance to thank heaven-suppressing Marquis for your support. Let me salute you." Yi Qinghan hurriedly helped Xianyuan Hongchen up and bowed in return. "Your Majesty, you are no longer the North vanquishing prince, but the monarch. Please don't treat your subjects with such respect. I strongly recommended you, not only because of the North vanquishing prince, but also because you are my ideal monarch." Xianyuan Hongchen's face flushed red. He nodded and said, "Thank you for your reminder, heaven-suppressing Marquis. I dare not forget." Yi Qinghan let out a breath of turbid air. He looked at the four primordial kings and Tang Jiao, the flame concubine, bowed and said, "Four primordial kings, the king's safety is in your hands. Flame concubine, please let bygones be bygones and forgive me for my ignorance and rudeness." Tang Jiao's mouth twitched and she groaned. However, she was now the flame concubine, and she had promised concubine Yu that she would not embarrass her. As the mother of the Celestial Empire, it was not good for her to go against the Celestial Empire's pillar. "Don't worry, I will not use the Celestial Empire's power to take revenge on you and that stupid bird. However, when the world is at peace, I will definitely go to the heaven-suppressing prefecture to teach you all a lesson." Tang Jiao angrily snorted. Yi Qinghan smiled embarrassedly while Xianyuan Hongchen smiled bitterly. It seemed like the flame concubine was still angry. The four immemorial monarchs bowed and respectfully said, "Don't worry, heaven-suppressing Marquis. As long as we don't die, the king won't be harmed at all." Yi Qinghan nodded his head in satisfaction. The four primordial kings were definitely worthy of their reputation. The ancient god bloodline in their bodies was not inferior to Tang Jiao's. They had already undergone atavism, and their combat power was far stronger than the current him. With their protection, even if a golden immortal big shot attacked, they would be able to hold on for a period of time. It was enough to buy enough time for Ping Yang, a big shot in the third realm. Yi Qinghan bowed and said, "Your Majesty, I will not be accompanying you any longer. I have to return to the heaven-suppressing palace for closed-door training. If you need me, you can send someone to inform me and I will return immediately." Xianyuan Hong took a deep breath. She knew that Yi Qinghan needed to go into seclusion. If he could break through to the undying immortal world, he would have no worries about the immortal kingdom. "Don't worry, I don't need a single absolute saint king for now, and the other marquises won't do anything rash. Go into seclusion, and when I need you, I will send a golden immortal big shot to pick you up." Xianyuan Hong immediately nodded and said, "I will give you my dragon carriage from before. Also, I will give you 3 peak mystic immortal level immemorial birds and 6 high mystic immortal level immemorial bird. They are all speed type immemorial birds. Now that they are outside the monarch palace, their speed will save you a lot of time." "Thank you, Your Majesty. I will take my leave now." Yi Qinghan carried the heaven-suppressing saber on his back and bowed before leaving. The dragon carriage was right outside the monarch palace. The 9 powerful immortal birds were majestic, but they were all tamed. Their divine feathers shone brightly and were quite beautiful. Yi Qinghan boarded the dragon carriage alone and lightly activated the spirit control lock. The birds flew into the sky and disappeared in the north in the blink of an eye. In the monarch palace, Tang Jiao had a serious expression. "Your Majesty, Fire Concubine is definitely not taking revenge on heaven-suppressing Marquis, but I really suspect that there is a problem with his identity. He might be a descendant of the Yen clan," Tang Jiao said in a deep voice. The 4 immemorial kings looked at Tang Jiao in surprise and bowed. "Fire Concubine, do you have proof?" Tang Jiao shook her head and said seriously, "It was too sudden, I didn't have time to sense it." However, Xianyuan Hong shook his head and said, "The hatred between the Yen clan and the immemorial races should be dispersed. From today onwards, no matter if heaven-suppressing Marquis is a descendant of the Yen clan or not, don't mention it again. He is recognized by the immortal emperor and was personally conferred the title of heaven-suppressing Marquis to replace suppressing the heavens. There is no way that the immortal emperor doesn't know if heaven-suppressing Marquis is from the Yen clan or not. Your Majesty, this is no small matter. Tang Jiao reminded in a deep voice. Xian Yuan Hong interrupted Tang Jiao and asked, Fire concubine, did he have any killing intent towards you? Tang Jiao shook her head, indicating that she didn't. Xian Yuan Hong sighed and said, before the immortal emperor left, he told me that heaven-suppressing Marquis can be trusted and there is no need to investigate his identity. He will also treat you with sincerity. So, I don't care about heaven-suppressing Marquis identity, and you all should stop investigating his identity. Understood? Yes, Your Majesty. The 4 immemorial kings and fire concubine bowed and replied. Remember one more thing. Before the immortal emperor returns, heaven-suppressing Marquis is gone and the celestial empire will collapse. It's not that I think too highly of him but that his crazed manor army is too strong. How many people acknowledged heaven-suppressing Marquis through a live broadcast? If we give up on him, there will be many who will fight for him. If we go against heaven-suppressing Marquis, how many soldiers do you think we need to take down heaven-suppressing Manor's crazed manor army? Xian Yuan Hong looked at the 5 immemorial kings and asked. As expected of the monarch's soul, Xian Yuan Hong Chen was able to see much further than the others. I once said that I would never do something like putting the bow away after the birds have flown. I owe him a debt of gratitude for recognizing my worth. Since he acknowledged me, I will not take the initiative to betray him. This is definitely not a woman's kindness, Xian Yuan Hongchen continued. The 4 immemorial kings and fire concubine immediately understood, and they never mentioned this again. Screech. The 9 flying beasts pulled the dragon carriage and flew away, heading straight for the heaven-suppressing prefecture. The journey that would have taken them decades was now completed in just 6 months with the help of the dragon carriage. Upon entering the heaven-suppressing prefecture, Yi Qinghan began to rearrange the personnel. Lu Aotian was no longer the leader of the Outer Sect army and replaced Yen Ao as the commander of the 3 armies. The insane sect's older generation, some from the Eternal World, Xiahou He, Zhan Clan's Son of War and the others were all gathered in the heaven-suppressing prefecture city. Search for Chess Supreme Saint, tell him that I need someone and the heaven-suppressing prefecture's army is lacking a strategist. Yi Qinghan ordered and informed Yen Ao. The entire celestial nation was immediately mobilized. In less than 3 months, Chess Supreme Saint received the news and was extremely excited. He took the initiative to head to the North Camp and was quickly brought to Yen Ao's side. Yen Ao then asked Ling Yang to send him to the heaven-suppressing prefecture. Chess Supreme Saint was most proficient in the Tao of chess. He was definitely not inferior to Yen Ao in terms of formations. He also liked to play with formations and politics. Yi Qinghan knew how to use people and was willing to let bygones be bygones. How could he not be happy? At this moment, Chess Venerable Saint's cultivation level was not very high. He was only at the beginner stage of the immortal heaven, immortal realm, and was far behind Yi Qinghan. However, Yi Qinghan wanted to use his brain, not his cultivation level. Yi Qinghan led the insane sect's older generation to personally welcome Ling Yang and Chess Supreme. Chess Supreme Saint did not expect Yi Qinghan to think so highly of him. He was extremely grateful and bowed to express his apologies. Yi Qinghan looked at Chess Supreme Saint and smiled. Chess Saint, you know me the best in this world and I know you the best too. So, I would like to appoint you to help me build a 5 million strong private army. You will be in charge of it. Are you willing to accept this position? Chess Supreme Saint laughed and looked at Yi Qinghan. Ha ha ha, I didn't think that the brats I had my eyes on back then would become a first-grade marquis in the celestial nations north and the heaven-suppressing marquis in Dijon Tion's place. I am very happy. Since you think highly of me, I will not disappoint you. As long as you let a few experts from the insane sect's inner sect assist me, I will make the army as strong as the insane sect's outer sect in 30 years. Yi Qinghan smiled and said calmly, "Who do you want? I guarantee it." Chapter 2553. Chess Saint was confident, but Yi Qinghan was even more confident in him. Yi Qinghan would definitely not reject Lu Aotian's request. Of course, Lu Aotian couldn't be let out as he was also a genius at leading an army. The inner sect, outer sect and ancient massacre god all needed a genius to lead them. Lu Aotian must stay in the heaven-suppressing prefecture. King Feng, Gu Qingyu, Li Feng, Xiahou He, Jiang Jingtian, Desolate Lord Yi and Mo Li. These 7 are enough. Chess Saint said firmly. Yi Qinghan pondered for a moment. Xiahou He was idle in the inner sect and had been cultivating in seclusion. King Feng, Gu Qingyu and Jiang Jingtian were guarding the outer sect. Alright, no problem. I will send someone else to guard the ancient massacre god. These 7 are yours. The resources and money are already in place. I want to build a 5 million private army as soon as possible. Other than that, I have also announced the expansion of the army. All the young experts and ambitious people in the Celestial Nation are welcome to sign up. You will be in charge of recruiting and training them. Yi Qinghan said calmly, for the next 30,000 years, you will be in charge of the private army. I will not interfere. If there is nothing special, do not inform me. Even if the war with the revered dragon army, you and Lu Aotian will be in charge. Chess Saint was overjoyed. This was equivalent to giving up his authority. Only then could he do what he wanted. Thank you for thinking so highly of me, Yi Zi. This old man has only made one mistake in his entire life, and I will definitely not make another mistake in the future. Chess Venerate Saint was all smiles as he chuckled. At this moment, Supreme Yi rubbed his hands and asked excitedly, "Boss, are you not going to give me some authority? I am an intelligent being. Give me an army and I can turn the world upside down." Yi Qinghan raised his brow and said calmly, "I will leave the outer sect army to you. Head to the northern fortress district and guard the throat of the heaven-suppressing prefecture district." Supreme Yi smiled and said, "Give me the authority to build a private army. I don't want much. 700,000 private army and 300,000 outer sect soldiers. It is enough for me to do what I want." Yi Qinghan thought for a moment, then nodded and said, "I'll allow it. You gambled again last time and won a lot of money. Don't ask me for celestial coins or resources." Supreme Yi said proudly, "Don't forget what my talent is. Resources are nothing to me. Give me the command talisman. I'll mobilize the outer sect army." Yi Qinghan shrugged and casually tossed the Kuang sect's seal to Sovereign Yi. Whoosh! Supreme Yi took the talisman and rushed to the camp where the outer sect of the Kuang sect was stationed. He laughed along the way, attracting the attention of a large number of people. After Sovereign Yi left, Yi Qinghan announced the order of appointment. Emperor Yi would be in charge of the inner sect, Sovereign Yi would be in charge of the outer sect, and Di Longtian would be in charge of the ancient massacre god. The commander-in-chief of the 3 armies would be Lu Aotian, who would be in charge of coordinating the defense and offense of the 3 armies. After that, Yi Qinghan carved a commander's seal and divided it into 2. One half was given to Emperor Yi, and the other half was given to Chess Venerable Saint. Only during wartime would the commander's seal be combined to mobilize the army. At other times, it could only be used for training. After settling all the matters, Yi Qinghan announced that he would go into seclusion and no longer care about the affairs of the world. Sky-gazing peak, stargazing tower. Green Lotus Sword Immortal had been cultivating here for several years. He had successfully stabilized himself at the early stage of the mystic immortal level and had begun to comprehend one of the 10 ancient sword arts, 10,000 sword. This was a sword technique that Gu Qingyu and Li Feng had obtained from the Sword Immortal sect. Yi Qinghan stepped into the stargazing tower and did not disturb Green Lotus Sword Immortal's comprehension. Instead, he sat cross-legged at the top and looked at the galaxy. The vast and misty Milky Way was dotted with stars that seemed to be within reach. The movement of the stars contained boundless Tao. When one looked at the stars for the first time, they could only see the vastness and heaviness of the universe, making one feel insignificant. Yi Qinghan's first impression was that the power of the universe was the strongest. No matter how strong humans or ancient immortals were, they could not be compared to the heavenly Tao. If one day they could move the galaxy and reverse space, the world would be at their fingertips, as expected of the number 1 mystique below the immortal emperor. The Yen tribe's human Tao mystique contained 3,000 great mystique. If not for the support of the human Tao mystique, it would really be difficult to compare with this galaxy inverse space diagram. Once inside the stargazing tower, time became a virtual concept. Time passed quickly, and the undying immortal world had already entered a period of restlessness. The 5 great immortal kingdoms, countless aristocratic families and powerful sects wanted to expand their territories. Once they did, even if the immortal emperors returned, they would not take it back. They would only be content with the status quo. Dragon Emperor Immortal Kingdom, Qing Zun Immortal Kingdom, Kai Yuan Immortal Kingdom, Supreme Immortal Kingdom, Shi Ling Immortal Kingdom. The generals of the immortal kingdoms were all solemnly waiting for the orders of the crown prince and king. With the help of Ling Yang, Yen Ao quickly gained control of the 80 million troops in the north. As for the west of the Qing Zun Immortal Empire, it was an endless ocean. He only sent a small number of troops to guard the borders. The rest of the army was placed in the east to fight against the revered Dragon Army. In the east, the army gathered 70 million troops. They were densely packed and were stationed at over 300 passes and cities at the borders. They were training day in and day out. Back then, during the final battle of the North God continent, the army had specially projected the battle to the army. The army was all under Yen Ao's control, and it was exceptionally easy for him to control them. Marquis Zun Long led a large number of revered dragon army to guard the North God continent. However, the Dragon Emperor Immortal Empire, Kai Yuan Immortal Empire and Paragon Immortal Empire were all borders. Adding on the Qing Zun Immortal Empire, it was extremely difficult to defend. Once the 5 great immortal kingdoms started a war, it would definitely be chaotic. Because the south of the Qing Zun Immortal Empire and Paragon Immortal Empire shared a border, once the war started, it would definitely be a full-scale war. Emperor Tai Hao led a large army to guard the south, defending against the Paragon Immortal Empire and Ultimate Peak Mountain. The Ultimate Peak Mountain was not only restless, a few of their golden immortal big shots had already formed an alliance and were preparing to expand their territory once again. Emperor Tai Hao could not intimidate the Ultimate Peak Mountain. Thousands of soldiers and horses were ready to charge into the sky. Lightning bolts could cover 100 miles and a storm was brewing. Large numbers of people started migrating away from the borders. In the north, there were also many living beings and people migrating away. Only the Heaven-Suppressing Prefecture and the Northern Suppression Prefecture remained calm. Everyone was preparing to defend against the invaders. Marquis Zun Long was deep in thought as he looked at Yen Ao's army in the northwest. He wanted to fight, but he was afraid of being entangled. Once the war dragged on, it would be disastrous. The Paragon Immortal Empire and Kai Yuan Immortal Empire would definitely take the opportunity to attack the Dragon Emperor Immortal Empire. Now, everyone wanted to take the initiative to attack, but no one dared to start the first battle. To a general, war was either a war that would shake the world or be cursed for millions of years. No one dared to gamble with their reputation. They were all waiting for the right time. The Qing Zun Immortal Empire had made their stance clear. They would only defend and not attack. Once they were attacked, they would immediately counterattack. In the heaven-suppressing prefecture, sky-gazing peak. Green vines wrapped around the peak, mist and immortal fog pervaded the air. It was like the real supreme ancient immortal world. The start-whining vine had taken root here. The two originally bare spiral peaks were now covered in green ancient vines. The thick green vines wrapped around the fulcrums, forming long bridges that reached the sky, entangling the entire courtyard house and the stargazing tower. The god-devouring eagle circled above the vines and the colorful snake slithered within the vines. The scales on its body were golden like dragon scales. Yi Qinghan was covered in dew and the cold wind tugged at his marquee robe. His eyes were staring into the void and his soul was wandering in the universe. Chapter 2554. Yi Qinghan's clothes were stained with rain and dew, adorned with water droplets. In the vast and misty stargazing tower, there was only the bitter cold wind, cutting Yi Qinghan's face like a knife. At this moment, Yi Qinghan could only see the galaxy in front of him. He could see the power of the universe but couldn't touch it. He couldn't use it either. However, he wasn't in a hurry. He was silently comprehending it. The inverse space Milky Way diagram on the robe was flowing slowly. It was like a real galaxy. The power was rolling and filling his limbs. Yi Qinghan could only choose to suppress the power and slowly comprehend it. 30,000 years was a long process. He had never been in seclusion for more than a few thousand years, let alone 30,000 years. 30,000 years was enough for him to reach the peak of the Xian immortal realm. With the heaven-suppressing blade, it was enough to kill the venerable dragon Marquis. Trillions of stars flashed in the sky, releasing the power of the galaxy. The clouds in the sky were solid and seemed to be able to bear the weight of a person. Yi Qinghan merged with the galaxy. He seemed to be able to control the power of the galaxy with a raise of his hand. With the help of the galaxy, he could shatter the void and suppress any expert. Unfortunately, his arms seemed to be suppressing the entire universe. He didn't even have the strength to raise his hand. The power and force of the universe was not something anyone could borrow. Golden immortals were strong enough, but they could only borrow the power and force of the universe. Immortal Emperor, on the other hand, could borrow the power of the galaxy and tear apart the immortal world. The immortal Emperor of the primordial age could even tear apart a strong and stable immortal world. No one knew how strong the Flame Ancestor was to be able to fight against more than 10 immortal emperors. Although both sides were injured, his glory was a taboo. The younger generation didn't even know of the Flame Ancestor's existence. Hua! Yi Qinghan gently raised his hand. His originally sparkling and translucent arm, which was brimming with vitality, quickly dried up and cracked. His skin and flesh split open. Boom! Yi Qinghan had only raised a third of his hand when it was instantly suppressed by a force. His heart felt like it was about to explode, and his face was deathly pale. In an instant, he felt like he was about to die. Finally, he stopped probing and calmed his mind to observe the stars. 30,000 years, I'll accompany you. Yi Qinghan raised his eyes to look at the sky. The crack on his arm was slowly healing, becoming translucent once again. Vigorous qi and blood flowed through his limbs and bones like a torrential river. At this moment, the time outside the stargazing tower was as slow as flowing water in the tower. In the blink of an eye, 100 years had passed. Lush ancient vines wrapped around the sky-gazing peak. It was as if thousands of years had passed, filled with the vicissitudes of life. Great waves surged into the sky, drowning large areas of fertile land. Mulberry fields were like a vast sea. Myriad changes occurred in an instant. In just 100 years, the heaven-suppressing prefecture and the northern suppression district had become prosperous, unaffected by the chaos in the outside world. Not only did no one migrate out, many even migrated to the heaven-suppressing prefecture, and many young experts joined the insane sect. Heroes are born in troubled times. If you want to stand out, you have to choose a tree to perch on. Obviously, the insane sect was the best tree that could carry the ups and downs of the world. The chess saint used 100 years to build a private army of only 4 million. It was not that he did not want to build 5 million, but many of them were intercepted by Supreme Yi. More than 30,000 mystic immortal experts were intercepted by Supreme Yi. Among the 700,000 private army built by Supreme Yi, none of them were below the immortal heaven immortal level. The weakest among them was a mid-level heavenly immortal, while the Kiliarchs were all mystic immortal level. It was extremely difficult for them to level up, but such an army was terrifyingly strong. Among the hundreds of kings of the same level, more than 30 of them were ranked in the top 100 of the Heaven Board of Qing Zun Immortal Nation. Among the top 36 in the Heaven Board, one of them was ranked in the top 10. The chess saint was envious, but he could not compete with Supreme Yi for talents. In the end, even Gu Qingyu could not stand it anymore. He personally went to the Northern Suppression District and scolded Supreme Yi. Only then did Supreme Yi stop intercepting the experts. From now on, our army will be named as the Supreme First Army. Remember this, either we don't fight or we don't lose. Otherwise, it will be a disgrace to me. Supreme Yi patted his chest and stood on the high stage, looking majestic. Unfortunately, he was too small, which made him look funny. Yes, sir. The 300,000 outer sect army stood in unison and were unusually excited. Everyone in the Kuang sect knew what Bitchbird was capable of. He would eat anything, but he would not lose out. Following him would definitely not be bad. However, the 700,000 private army doubted Supreme Yi's ability. They wanted to become the heaven-suppressing prefecture army, and at the very least, they would be led by Lu Outyin. Who knew that they would be led by a little brat in human form? Many of them were not willing. Supreme Yi looked at the 700,000 private army looking at him doubtfully and was instantly enraged. When I was leading the army in battle, you were still drinking milk. How dare you doubt me? Ask the 300,000 outer sect army, do they submit to me? They don't submit to the wall, only you. The 3 captains of the outer sect army looked at each other and shouted. They don't submit to the wall, only you. The 300,000 outer sect army marched in unison. Their aura shook the heavens and their voices were loud like a bell, vast and mighty. Si Wuxie and Yi Chentian, who were in charge of the outer sect army, grinned and mocked Supreme Yi. The 700,000 soldiers laughed as the situation was out of control. Roar! Screech! Supreme Yi was instantly enraged. His noble robe fluttered and a bracelet appeared in his hand. A wisp of soul howled and covered the sky as if a big boss had arrived personally. The million soldiers did not dare to breathe, and were much more obedient. Motherf *****, you want to do this the hard way? My title as the king of all beasts isn't just for show. Let alone you little bastards, even if I were to command 300,000 ancient killing gods, they wouldn't look down on me. Supreme Yi pretended to be serious. His expression was as if he was about to eat someone. Although it was not scary, the aura of a golden immortal was too scary. I don't care who you were before. As long as you join my private army, you must tell yourself that I am your sky. You will go wherever I want you to go and attack wherever I want you to attack. Even if that place is a dead end, you must not hesitate. Otherwise, you will be disobeying military orders. The consequences of disobeying military orders is death. I don't care if you are a private army or an outer sect army. I will treat you all the same. Supreme Yi had been following Yi Qinghan for many years. He had learned about 70 to 80% of Yi Qinghan's force. At this moment, not to mention the private army, even the 300,000 outer sect army did not dare to make a sound. Even Yi Chentian and Si Wuxie were unusually serious and no longer teased. Do you understand? Supreme Yi looked down at the army and asked angrily. Understood. The army immediately roared in unison. If you don't fix a small tree, you won't be able to run straight. What a bunch of fellows. Supreme Yi snorted and continued to lecture. I'm not that beast Yen Ao. I don't have so many orthodox great formations for you to learn. Our slogan is, go wherever there's an opportunity. Go wherever there's meat. You are not allowed to lose a battle. You are not allowed to cry when you lose. If you can't win, run. If you can't run, fight to the death. Even if you die, bite off a piece of meat from the enemy. Kill until they do not dare to fight. Chapter 2555. The Northern Suppression District was located at the throat of the Heaven Suppressing Prefecture. As long as this place was not breached, the Heaven Suppressing Prefecture would have nothing to worry about with the 300,000 ancient gods of slaughter guarding the border. The originally peaceful region was now in danger because of Paragon Ye's ascension. War could break out at any time as he was fearless. Opposite the Northern Suppression District was a grassland with occasional mountain ranges. This place was guarded by over 300 revered Dragon Army soldiers, led by Lord Zunlong's #1 general, Lord Wenzhong. Lord Wenzhong was a man of great military achievement. There were very few lords of the opposite sex, which showed his capabilities. His million dragon cavalry was very powerful. Although they were all hybrid lesser dragons, their combat power was not weak. Normally, no cavalry could fight against them. 1,000,000 dragon cavalry and 2,000,000 heavy infantry were enough to guard the heaven-suppressing prefecture army. Not to mention, there were also 100,000 azure dragon guards at the back, ready to help at any time. Supreme Yi had already investigated the other party's military configuration thoroughly. It was almost impossible for him to stay put. He had only trained the private army for more than 10 years, and he was already itching to make a move because he had run out of celestial coins and resources. How could he fight without money and resources? Sovereign Yi rubbed his small mouth and crossed his legs. He whispered to Yi Chentian, "Go and invite Bailey Chenxiang over. I don't have any more resources, so I have to get some. King Wenzhong's 3 million troops are like lambs. It would be a waste not to rob them." Yi Chentian rolled his eyes and pointed at the 1 million soldiers that were training. He asked, "You want your 1 million soldiers to rob their 3 million soldiers? That's 1,000,000 dragon cavalry and 2 million heavy infantry. What are you going to use?" "Bah!" Sovereign Yi impolitely slapped Yi Chentian's head and reprimanded him with an exasperated look. What happened to the prenatal education back then? What happened to the dog's brain? Who told you to rush over and snatch it in a fit of anger? Why didn't you sneak attack them when they were unprepared? Otherwise, why would I invite Bailey Chenxiang? Yi Chentian looked at Paragon Yi angrily, but there was nothing he could do. He was an elder, even if he still looked like a kid. "Go, go, this is a military order." Paragon Yi waved his hand and said. Yi Chentian pouted. He could only go to the heaven-suppressing prefecture's border because Bailey Chenxiang was in the ancient war zone. The ancient massacre god was currently guarded by Di Longtian, Qitian Monkey King, the little pangolin in the center, and Bailey Chenxiang as the secret agent. There were celestial flowers in front of the ancient killing god. These were the eyes of the ancient killing god, and no one would be able to silently appear in front of him. Several days later, Yi Chentian appeared in the ancient massacre god camp and went to look for Di Longtian. Di Longtian looked at Yi Qintian's helpless expression and asked curiously, "Did you eat poison? Why do you look so pale?" "Supreme Master Yi wants to launch a sneak attack on the dragon cavalry and heavy infantry led by Prince Wenzhong. He wants me to borrow Fairy Bailey." Yi Qintian sighed helplessly. Yi Qintian originally thought that Di Longtian would stop him, but he didn't expect that Di Longtian would be even more excited than Sovereign Yi. He immediately rubbed his hands and said, "Is this true? It seems like the heavens are on my side. The revered dragon army killed so many of my ancient killing gods. If I don't get some interest back, I won't be able to sleep and cultivate." Yi Qintian slapped his head. It seemed like this guy also wanted to fight. "Go back and inform that stupid bird to help me stall Prince Wenzhong. I'll take the army to kill the 100,000 Azure Dragon Guards and give all the resources to him," Di Longtian said excitedly. Yi Qintian rolled his eyes. It seemed like the people from the arrogant sect were all ruthless. Yi Qintian didn't manage to borrow Bailey Qinxiang, but he received good news. He could only go back and report. After Sovereign Yi received the news, he rubbed his hands in excitement. He only had to stall Prince Wenzhong to get resources. There was nothing more convenient than this. There was no need to fight Prince Wenzhong. There were many ways to stall him. "Send someone to inform Di Longtian that I can stall Prince Wenzhong's army for a month. I guarantee that they won't have time to help the Azure Dragon Guard. Tell them to kill without worry," Sovereign Yi said excitedly. Then, Sovereign Yi waved his hand and shouted, "Beat the drums! Head to the border!" Hey, aren't we going to prepare?" Yi Qintian hurriedly asked. Sovereign Yi glared at him and scolded, "What did I teach you? Speed is the most important thing in war. What's there to prepare? By the time you're ready, it'll be too late." Dong, dong, dong. The military drums shook the sky and the bugle horn sounded. The million-strong army quickly set up camp and rushed to the border area with great momentum. Prince Wenzhong, who was far away at the border of the northern state, was shocked. He immediately ordered his men to beat the drums and arrange the troops, pressing the 3 million troops to the border. Dong, 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 the 4 million troops faced each other at the border with great momentum. The 300,000 secondary dragons were lined up neatly. There were 3 to 4 people sitting on each of them, holding spears and giant crossbows. They glared at the army that was rushing over from the northern state. Sovereign Yi was carried by several burly men. His marquee battle armor fluttered in the wind. He crossed his legs and looked quite powerful. "Listen up, you bastards. Today I'll teach you how to be a man." Sovereign Yi channeled his immortal spirit energy. His crisp voice was very penetrating, and it directly penetrated the army on the other side. Prince Wenzhong's mount was an ancient demon. It was majestic. At this moment, it was staring coldly at Sovereign Yi. As Prince Wenzhong, it was impossible that he didn't know any information. Others might underestimate Sovereign Yi, but he wouldn't. In fact, he would be more cautious. "Sovereign Yi, are you trying to start a war?" Prince Wenzhong said in a low voice. Sovereign Yi grinned and said, "Prince Wenzhong, I've heard a lot about you. Today, I'd like to challenge the ragtag army that you're leading." Ragtag army? The Million Dragon Cavalry was known as the main force of the army, but it was actually a ragtag army? The 2 million heavy infantry were invincible. Even though they had been at peace for countless years, their combat power had only increased. Who dared to say that they were a ragtag army? The Dragon Cavalry and the 2 million heavy infantry were all red in the face. They glared at Sovereign Yi in the distance. Whoosh! Countless sharp gazes pierced through the void. When they saw Sovereign Yi's young face, they couldn't wait to tear him apart. Oh, what a scary gaze! Look at you guys, it's like you're going to eat me. Are you unhappy? I already said that you guys are trash. Compared to my million-strong army, you guys aren't even worthy of carrying my shoes. Sovereign Yi stood up majestically and pointed at Prince Wenzhong's army as he cursed. Roar! The 300,000 outer sect army roared, followed by the 700,000 inner sect army. They were all challenging Prince Wenzhong's army. Prince Wenzhong's face turned green. If it weren't for Lord Zunlong's order to not challenge the heaven-suppressing palace's army, he would have lost his temper. Prince Wenzhong's army became restless. They began to gather their energy and prepared for battle. If you're not convinced, this sovereign will allow you to arrange your troops first. Later, when this sovereign leads the first army of 1,000,000 sovereign martial artists to attack, all of you will flee in all directions like stray dogs. Ha 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 ha! Sovereign Yi looked at the restless army opposite him and immediately laughed out loud. Ha ha ha, the 1,000,000-strong army laugh. It was extremely provocative. Whoosh! Prince Wenzhong's war flag waved and the army's formation changed. It took an hour for both the offensive and defensive formations to be ready. Sovereign Yi scratched his head and suddenly said, I think I haven't eaten today. Forget it, I won't teach you guys a lesson today. Whoosh! He waved the war flag and shouted, Brothers, let's go home and eat. Let's not play with these idiots anymore. Whoosh! Half of the army turned and the other half was still defending. They quickly retreated and prepared to return to North Suppression City. Dong dong dong, clearly, Sovereign Yi wasn't joking. He really left, leaving behind a dumbfounded Prince Wenzhong and his army. This is too much. Outrageous. Prince Wenzhong was furious. He wanted to chase the army across the border and kill them all. Chapter 2556. Supreme Yi came in a mighty manner and left in a mighty manner. The reason was that he had not eaten. King Wenzhongwang took a few deep breaths and tried his best to restrain himself. He did not want to start a war first. Sob 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 sob, King Wenzhongwang's army blew the horn to retreat. The army quickly changed into a square formation, dragging the heavy armor. It consumed a lot of energy and mental strength. However, just as the army turned to leave, they heard the deafening battle cries from behind. Kill! Charge! Supreme Yi took the lead and turned around. However, he only brought 200,000 to 300,000 people with him. His aura shook the heavens as if a 1,000,000-strong army was mobilized. King Wenzhongwang was shocked. He immediately waved the military flag and ordered the three armies to rearrange their defenses and prepare to face Supreme Yi's army. Boom boom boom. Dong dong dong. It wasn't easy to arrange an army of 3 million soldiers. Under such haste, their faces were red from exhaustion. This was especially true for the heavy infantry. Their heavy armor was incomparably thick and heavy. Coupled with the heavy shields, it was difficult to adjust in a short period of time. Boom! 300,000 heavy armored infantry charged at the front with shields, defending the front firmly. The 3 million troops were imposing as they glared at Supreme Yi. As long as they charged across the border, they would not leave alive. Whoosh! Dong dong dong. The 200,000 to 300,000 outer sect troops led by Supreme Yi quickly stabilized their footing and stopped when they were 2 to 3 miles away from the border. Ha ha, these idiot. I'm just teasing you. I'm really going back for breakfast this time. Supreme Yi laughed until he was convulsing. He waved the flag, and the outer sect army gave King Wenzhongwang a look of disdain before retreating. The outer sect people cooperated very well. This kind of detailed attack did not take much effort at all because they knew they would not fight. It was purely to lead the enemy army around and exhaust their strength. King Wenzhongwang's face was ferocious as he watched Supreme Yi retreat. Who in the regular army would do that? Supreme Yi was too despicable. He did not play by the rules at all. General, let's kill them. This group of despicable people is too despicable. We can't tolerate them at all. King Wenzhongwang's captains of the army roared. King Wenzhongwang was cautious by nature. He stared at Supremacy Ye's back as he left. Clenching his iron fists, he shook his head and growled, "Be careful of traps. Mobilize all the spies and pin down this army. I want to see what they're up to." Very quickly, when Zhong Wang sent over a large number of spies, there were only about 100 spies left in the entire district, and they were scattered all over the place. A large number of spies had infiltrated the border between the Northern Suppression District and the Heaven-Suppressing Palace District. Unfortunately, what they didn't know was that Bailey Qinxiang had already sensed their presence. Di Longtian had mobilized some ancient killing gods to attract their attention, and then he personally led the army away, taking a detour to the northern god region through the sea. As soon as Di Longtian took action, Sovereign Yi began to stir up a commotion, causing the 3 million soldiers to be exhausted from running back and forth. In the end, King Wenzhong could no longer hold his ground. Since he couldn't attack, he could only set up camp on the spot. On average, Supreme Yi would lead the army to attack every 6 hours. Sometimes they would even rush to the border, forcing the other party to have no choice but to stand up and defend. As the number of times increased, King Wenzhong was infuriated. He knew that Supreme Yi wouldn't dare to attack forcefully, but he didn't dare to sit back and do nothing. If the 1 million soldiers really rushed into the army, the losses would be great. This time, Supreme Yi led the army to the border. He looked at King Wenzhong from afar and shouted, "King Wenzhong, I have a question for you. Do you dare to answer?" King Wenzhong took a deep breath and suppressed his anger. When facing an army, he was most afraid of being impatient. Thus, he pretended to be calm and said in disdain, "Ignorant brat, how dare you embarrass yourself in front of me with such petty tricks? Ask away if you have any questions. Today, I will teach you a lesson on behalf of Yi Qinghan." Ha ha ha, Supreme Yi laughed in disdain. If he had any sense of shame, he wouldn't be a lowly bird. "King Wenzhong, does that old man Zun Long know that you're so stupid?" Supreme Yi asked with a sneer. "No. Don't know. F***ck your mother's lowly bird. Does your master Yi Qinghan know that you're so lowly?" King Wenzhong didn't pay attention for a moment and suffered a hidden loss. He immediately cursed. Supreme Ye's expression was strange as he said with a sneer, "Ha ha ha, he knows. The whole world knows. Only an idiot like you doesn't know." Roar! The million soldiers roared with laughter, the sound waves shaking the sky. King Wenzhong had already been defeated by Supreme Ye's shameless spirit. He actually took shamelessness as glory, as if he had a lot of face. Supreme Yi looked at King Wenzhong proudly and shouted, "King Wenzhong, I've heard that you're invincible and invincible. I'll make a bet with you. Let's bet that I'll disperse your 3 million soldiers within 15 days and capture you alive. If I fail, I'll give you 30 billion celestial coins. If I win, you'll call me daddy. How about it?" King Wenzhong was incomparably furious. He saw that Supreme Yi was so confident that he was willing to use 30 billion in exchange for a verbal advantage. "All right. I'll bet with you." King Wenzhong said angrily. "Ha ha. Then we'll just have to wait. In 1 month's time, watch how I'll tear your dragon army apart, stomp on your heavy infantry, and ride on top of you," Supreme Yi said confidently. King Wenzhong's face turned pale as he roared, "I'll just wait for you to step into the North God region's border. By then, it won't be you attacking my army, it will be me trampling on your northern region. Son, I'll be waiting for you to call me daddy. You better defend well. In 1 month's time, I'll charge over at any time." After saying that, Supreme Yi led his army away again. King Wenzhong became serious. Looking at Supreme Yi, he was almost certain that he would charge over within a month's time. Now that he was harassing them, he must be trying to make the army relax. Hold the line. As long as he dares to lead his army to attack and start the war, Our dragon cavalry and heavy infantry will be able to trample the northern region and enter the heaven-suppressing prefecture's district. I'll be able to vent my anger for the past few days. Whoever kills the most enemies will be reported to Lord Zunlong and be conferred the title of king. King Wenzhong roared. Yes, sir. The 3 million soldiers were furious and were waiting for a battle to vent their anger. However, Supreme Yi continued to harass them. He did not show any signs of attacking at all. 1 day, 2 days, 3 days. This went on for more than 20 days. Supreme Yi led his army to harass the revered dragon army at least 3 times a day, making them tired and angry while he himself was having fun. The 700,000 soldiers were shocked by Supreme Yi's perseverance and shamelessness. During the last 3 days, King Wenzhong looked at Supreme Yi with disdain, as if he was looking at a clown. Prepare the 30 billion, King Wenzhong said coldly. Supreme Yi said with disdain, What's the rush? There are still 3 days to go. At that moment, hundreds of immortal horses appeared behind the revered dragon army. They trampled on the rocks and galloped over. Report. The inner city has fallen. An ear-piercing voice came from the depths of the North God region. Hua. Supreme Yi immediately led his army back to the northern region and mobilized his army. Ha ha ha, this idiot hired by the monkey actually thought that I would attack. Supreme Yi laughed as he stood on the city wall. Author's note. I came back from the hospital early in the afternoon. If I don't update before 8, I won't update anymore. Chapter 2557. The rear city had fallen? Only then did Wenzhong realize that he had been tricked. Supreme Yi had an ulterior motive. He wanted to restrain his army so that he could ambush the Azure Dragon Guards and the city from the rear. Where are the 100,000 Azure Dragon Guards? The resources and celestial coins are all in the city. Can't your 100,000 Azure Dragon Guards stop some trash? When Zhongwang roared and questioned. Report. More than 100 Azure Dragon Guards fled into the army. They were in a sorry state and were covered in blood. It's 300,000 ancient death gods that came from the northern sea route and attacked the city gates by surprise. The 100,000 Azure Dragon Guards suffered heavy losses, and all the resources in the city were plundered. A high-level profound immortal expert who was covered in blood was lying on the ground. The injuries on his body were already fatal. He was originally an invincible existence in the same realm, but in the face of 300,000 ancient death gods, he was completely useless. He couldn't even break through his defenses. In the end, he could only flee in a sorry state. You bunch of trash! How dare you call yourselves the Azure Dragon Guards? You didn't even know that someone had come to your doorstep. Your resources were also looted. I'd like to see how you're going to explain this to the Marquis. Wen Zhongwang's head was filled with blood. He almost fainted from anger. He looked at Supreme Yi, who had already fled, and took a few deep breaths. Marquis, please think of a way. Those resources are worth hundreds of billions of celestial coins. It's enough to pay 3 million soldiers for 10 years. Our lives are small, but the resources are huge. That expert begged. Without resources, the army's morale would definitely drop. At this moment, when Zhongwang was more anxious than him. Move out. Enter the northern city. Break through the defenses of the northern city at all costs. I want to use Supreme Ye's life in exchange for the resources, Wen Zhongwang said angrily. Whoosh! The 3 million soldiers had been angered to death for more than a month. They couldn't hold it in anymore. With the order, they marched into the border. As soon as they stepped into the border, Supreme Yi received the news. He said happily, This son of AB*TCH hasn't been fooled enough. He wants to attack the city. I'm afraid he won't be able to return. Yi Chentian was sweating profusely. He looked at the black mass in the east of the city and asked in a low voice, How are you going to solve this? Supreme Yi rolled his eyes and looked at Tan Wuxia from the corner of his eyes. He asked, "How are the arrangements going?" Stan Wuxia immediately nodded and said, "It's done. All the spies have been cleared out. All the citizens of Northern Battlefront City have retreated. Chess Supreme said that he wants to use these 3 million soldiers to train his private army and form an encirclement. We just have to wait for them to enter the city. We just have to watch the show." Whoosh! Supreme Yi tossed the battle flag in his hand into the sky and shouted, "Destroy the city's barrier formation. All troops retreat from Northern Garrison City through the West Gate and welcome King Wenzhong. Give Northern Garrison City to him. We'll catch a turtle in a jar." Whoosh! Boom! The outer sect army of 300,000 quickly broke through all the barriers in the city, while the private army of 700,000 had already rushed out of the city. The city was indeed empty, but the camp was still there. It seemed that the million-strong army was still in the city. Dong dong dong! The army moved out, shaking heaven and earth. The mountains and rivers moved up and down, and smoke rose everywhere. King Wenzhong led the army and rushed to the endless northern garrison city. Dozens of powerful mystic immortal private soldiers stood on the city wall, holding battle flags in their hands. Their expressions did not change. Supreme Yi was lying on the chair very comfortably. Yi Chuntian and Tan Wuxia stood on both sides, looking down at the city. Creak! The city gate was opened, and the gatekeeper quickly fled to the west of the city. Roar! King Wenzhong waved his hand, and the 300,000 secondary dragons stopped in their tracks. The army stopped. Trying to play the empty city strategy with me? These are all leftovers. The spies have sent news that the army hasn't retreated. You've given up on resisting. Do you think I won't dare to attack the city? King Wenzhong's lips curled up. He paused for a moment, then waved his hand. The military drum rumbled, and the bugle horn sounded, shaking heaven and earth. Dong dong dong! The bugle horn sounded throughout the heavenly river. The 3 million soldiers charged at the city wall, and a portion of them rushed out of the city through the city gate. Whoosh, 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 whoosh! Countless arrows rained down from the sky, all aimed at Supreme Yi and the others. Boom, boom, boom! Dozens of mystic immortal experts gathered around Supreme Yi. They waved their divine weapons to cut off the arrows and spears, protecting Supreme Yi as they retreated. Wretched King Wenzhong, tomorrow is the day I step into the northern divine region. Supreme Yi did not forget to hoot before he left, angering King Wenzhong so much that he lost his mind. He ordered the army to completely destroy the city wall and raze it to the ground. However, when they attacked the city, they realized that it was really an empty city. Not to mention the army, even the civilians had moved out. Not a single hair was left behind. Oh no! Retreat! King Wenzhong suddenly came to his senses, and his hair stood on end. He waved his flag and ordered the army to retreat. However, at this time, 4 million private soldiers appeared at the east border of the city. Supreme Sage was the commander, Gu Qingyu, Emperor Feng, Desolate Lord Yi, and Jiang Jingtian were the vanguard, Xiahou He and Li Feng were the center, and Mo Li was the rear. Dong dong dong! Da. Although the 4 million private soldiers had only been established for about 100 years, their combat power had already been formed. They were only waiting for this baptism of blood. The other 1 million soldiers were borrowed by Supreme Yi to guard the west of the city, blocking the chance for King Wenzhong's army to enter. In the north of the city, Di Longtian led 300,000 ancient killing gods and completely blocked King Wenzhong's path. King Wenzhong could either attack the 4 million private soldiers of Supreme Sage or enter the hinterland of the Qing Zun Immortal Empire. However, at that time, he would not be facing this bunch of random soldiers, but Yen Ao's regular army. Whoosh! Just as King Wenzhong was preparing to attack the ancient killing gods in the north of the city to take back the resources, Lu Outyen personally led the intersect army and joined forces with the ancient killing gods. The 3 million soldiers were surrounded like dumplings, and the three armies were constantly shrinking. There was not much space left for King Wenzhong's 3 million soldiers. Supreme Yi sneered, and from a few li away, he used his immortal spirit energy to hoot, "King Wenzhong, it seems like you still don't know how to lead an army to war. Do you know what it means to never be too deceitful in war? Do you really think that I would be stupid enough to use 1 million soldiers to fight to the death with your 3 million regular soldiers? Your 3 million regular soldiers are worthless in my eyes, not even worth the lives of my private soldiers. Why would I fight to the death with you? So, when I provoked you, I had my men contact all the armies in the Heavens Suppressing Prefecture to stop you in the North Suppression City. I want to use your 3 million soldiers to pay for the 30,000 insane sect soldiers that died in my hand. And this is just the interest. When I have the time, I will go to the Reverent Dragon Manor and take Lord Zunlong's head to pay tribute to the fallen soldiers of insane sect." King Wenzhong's blood boiled, rushing into his psyche ocean. He staggered and almost fell down. This time, he was truly angered to the point of fainting. He had been leading armies for many years, much longer than Yi Qinghan. But now, he was fooled by Yi Qinghan's spirit pet and was even taught a lesson. King Wenzhong could not take this lying down, but he had lost all his advantages. The 3 million soldiers were facing the Quang Mansion's 1 million soldiers and 5 million private soldiers. Furthermore, the Chess Supreme's method of deployment was not inferior to Yen Ao's. The 4 million soldiers were like a trillion stars flashing, vast and boundless, making others feel powerless. King Wenzhong glanced around. He would rather fight against Supreme Ye's 2 million soldiers than Chess Saint. As long as he could capture Supreme Yi, he would not have to worry about not being able to escape. Hua! King Wenzhong took a deep breath, stood up and pointed his sword to the west. He wanted to defeat Supreme Ye's army and charge into the heaven-suppressing prefecture. That way, he might have a chance of survival. Chapter 2558. He pointed his sword to the west, intending to attack. This was the only way for Wenzhong Wang's 3 million army to survive. There were too many ancient massacre gods and intersect experts in the north. There were almost a few hundred vanguards. No army would be able to withstand such an attack. Saint Chess Supreme's formation seemed to be very difficult to attack. A normal commander would choose to attack Sovereign Yi. After all, he was the only one who relied on trick. He couldn't withstand the attack. Wenzhong Wang roared, "Kill! Capture Sovereign Yi alive!" Supreme Sovereign Yi smiled in disdain. He rubbed his nose and watched as the dragon cavalry rushed to a spot not far ahead. He opened his hands, and the army automatically parted, opening up a large road that was several thousand feet wide. However, it was not a flat road behind them, but another army. This army was shining with golden light. There were definitely more than 1 million of them. The war flag was raised high and the word Yen attacked the souls of countless people. Yen Ao took the lead. He held a long spear in his hand and his battle clothes fluttered. His expression was calm and his eyes were like stars. He looked down at the 3 million army as if they were ants. "Wenzhong Wang, I have long heard of your name. Today this marquis will meet you," Yen Ao said indifferently. Dong dong dong. The military drums shook the sky and the sound of the bugle tore through the river. Plop, the heavy infantryman at the front knelt on the ground in fear. The army's formation was in chaos. At this moment, Wenzhong Wang's face was pale. He didn't expect Yen Ao to appear here. You are actually here? Who is confronting Marquis Zunlong?" Wenzhong Wang asked in fear. Yen Ao led an army of a little more than 1,000,000 to form an alliance with Sovereign Ye's army. He walked with firm steps towards Wen Zhongwang's army and said indifferently, "Defeating you is enough. Seeing that you are a king, I will give you a chance. Lead the 3,000,000 army and surrender. I don't want to kill wantonly." No one in the army wasn't afraid of Yen Ao. During the last battle in the North Divine region, the army hoped to learn something from it. However, because of the projection, it left a shadow in the hearts of the various commanders. They were stunned by Yen Ao's commanding ability. Gulp, when Zhongwang's complexion turned pale as he swallowed a mouthful of saliva. Seeing that the morale of his army had collapsed, he knew that he had been completely defeated. Not to mention that Yen Ao was here, just the 7,000,000 strong army was enough to make him suffer. Of the 3,000,000 soldiers, only the dragon riders still had the will to fight. The others didn't dare to fight anymore. Supreme Yi clapped his hands and laughed. He looked at the 300,000 lesser dragons standing proudly on the battlefield and said cheekily, "I'm the emperor of beasts. Why aren't you low-level bloodlines kneeling when you see me? Roar!" What responded to him was the roars of 300,000 secondary dragons. Venerable Ye's bloodline was not enough to intimidate the secondary dragons, let alone so many of them. Roar! Screech! Supreme Yi soared into the sky, and his aura suddenly soared into the sky. A pair of 10-colored wings covered the sky and the sun. The combination of phoenix and phoenix, the phoenix danced in the 9 heavens, and the mountains and rivers were restless. The primordial immortal phoenix bloodline used the power of the mountains and rivers and the universe to completely suppress the secondary dragon. The soul of a golden immortal struck thousands of miles away, its might enveloping everything. Plop! Boom! The will of 300,000 lesser dragons collapsed. Although they didn't kneel, their will to fight had already disappeared. Life and death with a single thought. Your 3,000,000 soldiers are in your hands. You can pledge your loyalty to the immortal Dragon Emperor's immortal empire, or you can save the lives of these 3,000,000 soldiers. Make your choice. You only have an incense's time. Yen Ao said calmly. The 3,000,000 soldiers fell into a dead silence. It wasn't that they weren't loyal, but that they didn't have a chance. If we surrender, what about our families? There's no other way. This king can die without regrets in today's battle. At least, I'll die in your hands. When Zhongwang drew his sword and roared. Before Yen Ao could reply, Supreme Yi added, "No, no, no. You'll die in my hands." Ha 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 ha, when Zhongwang instantly spat out a mouthful of blood essence. A surge of blood essence rushed into his sea of consciousness. His vision turned black, and he almost fell to the ground. He took a deep breath, suppressed his anger, and shouted, "Follow me and kill!" Hua, woo-woo, the horn of war officially sounded. The 7,000,000 soldiers changed into square formations, turning into countless sharp blades that tore apart Wen Zhongwang's 3,000,000 army. They sliced and sliced again and again. What was originally an army was finally torn apart into individuals. Individuals were like ants in front of an army. No matter how strong one's cultivation was, they couldn't carry an army. Blood flowed into rivers, and corpses piled up into mountains. Flames soared into the sky, and the 5 elements went berserk. The lesser dragons wailed and struggled as they were pierced by countless spears. Xiao xiao xiao. Some Xian immortal experts had just rushed into the sky when they were drowned by the spears, dying tragically on the spot. Hua hua hua. The army constantly changed positions. The vanguard fought against 10 enemies alone, while the army at the back supported them. Even the experts with higher cultivation and fighting strength than the vanguard only had time to draw their swords to block one attack before they were pierced by dozens of arrows. Chess Supreme ordered Jiang Jingtian and the rest to lead half of the army into the army. They were simply harvesting lives. Chess Supreme and Yen Ao's doppelganger stood on high ground, overlooking the battlefield. They were commanding the army at any time. The horns sounded, and the military drums shook the sky. All the army participated in the encirclement and coordinated with each other. The casualties of the Quang Manor's army were reduced to the lowest. Almost all of them were injured, and the death toll was the lowest. Yen Ao's army of more than 1 million had very few injuries, and their impact was the strongest. After all, the confidence and faith he gave to the army was extraordinary, even more so than Chess Supreme. Chess Supreme had just come into contact with the private army, and there was no unprecedented battle for him to establish his prestige. Otherwise, his 5 million private army would definitely not lose to Yen Ao's regular army. Divine Bird's army was the most despicable. Wherever they went, they would go where there was meat and wherever there was an opportunity. He didn't play by the rules at all. Even his private army and outer sect carried a despicable aura. The morale of the ancient massacre god and the inner sect army was the strongest. This was because their faith was the most firm, and they were far more determined than the regular army. Soon, when Zhongwang saw that the army had suffered heavy casualties, and they didn't even have the chance to attack, he waved the war flag helplessly and ordered the army to surrender. However, his heart was filled with pain. Although I lost, I definitely didn't lose to that despicable bird. My army has surrendered, and I hope Yen Ho will treat me well. This king will commit suicide to thank the Marquis and the Immortal Empire for nurturing me. When Zhongwang faced the sky and roared with unwillingness. Unfortunately, the outcome was already decided. Hua! Whoosh! When Zhongwang soared into the sky and committed suicide, radiating with boundless radiance. A talented general of a generation had fallen just like that. His death meant that the war had just begun. Yen Ao didn't feel any regret. When Zhongwang committed suicide to atone for the Dragon Emperor Immortal Empire's mistake. Although the enemy general died a heroic death, they didn't know how to show mercy. Bury Wen Zhongwang and take over the army. Those who are willing to surrender, take them in. Those who aren't, lock them up first and make a decision after peace. Yen Ao calmly said. After that, he mobilized his army and left the northern district. At this moment, the most excited one was Sovereign Yi. He snatched away the majority of the prisoners and even fought to clean up the battlefield. Half of the spoils of war were taken by him. In the end, he even stretched out his hand to ask Di Longtian for more resources. Little Tian Tian, you promised me. I will help you lead Wen Zhongwang's army. You will kill the Azure Dragon Guards for revenge, and I will get the resources. Don't go back on your words. Sovereign Yi said seriously. Di Longtian's face immediately fell. He sighed and said, Sigh, the Azure Dragon Guards are really poor. It wasn't easy for me to take down the city, but the inside of the city can really be considered as 4 bare walls. I'm so poor that I can't even get a few celestial coins. You brat, don't try to scare me. I grew up scaring people. Sovereign Yi immediately put his hands on his waist and roared. Chapter 2559. Supremacy. Ye's face turned green. He didn't expect Di Longtian to go back on his word. He was clearly trying to deny the resources. Di Longtian looked at Supreme Sovereign Yi with a look of certainty as he earnestly advised, Supreme Sovereign Yi, you don't even know how difficult it was for us on this journey. We crossed mountains and seas, and many of our brothers have died. This bit of money and resources isn't even enough for us to settle down. Supremacy. Yi rolled his eyes. Do you know how much effort I had to put in to help you restrain the Wen Zhongwang army? My brothers were exhausted from running back and forth. In the end, all you said was that we didn't get anything and that we suffered a loss? I'd be an idiot if I believed you. No matter how Supremacy. Yi scolded them, Di Longtian and the ancient god of slaughter army just smiled and refused to admit that they had gotten the resources. In the end, Supremacy Yi almost lied down for the resources. You should sympathize with me and give me some. At least I have some comfort. Otherwise, I'll be letting down my million brothers. Supremacy Yi wailed. Di Longtian shrugged. He could only hand over 2 million Celeste coins and 10% of the resources. Something was better than nothing. Supremacy Yi could only grit his teeth in hatred after getting the resources. He knew that he couldn't get any more resources and could only return resentfully. F***ck, we've suffered a huge loss this time. We've lost an entire city, but in the end all the benefits were taken away by them. F***ck, this is the first time I've done a losing business. Supreme Yi looked at the desolate North Town city and almost covered his face in tears. Yi Qiantian and Si Wuxia also looked at each other. Even if they counted the spoils and prisoners, as well as the resources and Celeste coins, they still lost half of the city. Of course, they killed 100,000 Azure Dragon Guards, more than 1 million Wen Zhongwang army soldiers, and captured more than 1 million soldiers. However, they didn't get the credit. What do we do? Si Wuxia looked at Supremacy Yi and asked helplessly. Supremacy Yi's eyes were lifeless. He stood on the ruins and suddenly roared, "What do we do? Of course, we'll build the city first. After that, we won't cooperate with that dog Di Longtian anymore. We'll play by ourselves. Bring those prisoners of war to me. Let them help us build the city. At the very least, they can save us some resources. I'll leave the overseers to you. I'll think of a way to get some resources," the sovereign said to Yi Qiantian and Si Wuxia. Supremacy Yi was not the only one who was flustered and exasperated. The revered Dragon King was in a confrontation with Yan Ao at the border of the northern Divine region. When Zhongwang's army was completely annihilated, and he even lost 100,000 Azure Dragon Guards. His eyes were bloodshot. However, before the revered Dragon King had the time to declare war, the war in the southern regions had already begun. The ultimate Peak Mountain had officially started their invasion, expanding their territory. The Paragon Immortal Empire had stationed tens of millions of troops at the southern borders, eyeing them covetously, causing the revered Dragon King to have no choice but to pay attention to both sides. Order all the other nobles to leave their posts and enter the border area to take over the army. Today, I want an all-out war. Respectable Dragon King slowly stood up and said angrily. In an instant, the Immortal Dragon Emperor's Immortal Kingdom had mobilized all their forces. The interior was empty, and they had all gathered at the border. With so many experts gathered, a war could break out at any moment. In the southern region, Emperor Taihao was personally overseeing the situation. 6 marquises were appointed as commanders, while 17 imperial uncles and princes each led their own troop. Together, they made up more than half of the Celestial Nation's main forces. The Paragon Immortal Empire and Ultimate Peak Mountain were all gathering their troops, preparing to wage war on all fronts and expand their territories. Ultimate Peak Mountain had the least amount of troops, but there were quite a number of marquises there. They were not willing to serve the Celestial Nation, and only wanted to take over their territory and establish themselves as kings. At this time, the 5 marquises of Jingfan Mountain did not want to participate in the war so early. However, the sovereign family had personally stepped in and requested Zhang Fan and the other elders to oversee the northern regions, hoping to hold the heaven-suppressing prefecture. Zhang Fan had no other choice but to personally lead Jing Fan's army to the northern regions. Zhang Fan was indebted to Yi Qinghan, and the sovereign family knew that Yi Qinghan would definitely not initiate an attack on Zhang Fan. That was why they asked him to oversee the northern regions. Jing Fan's army was only 1 million strong, but they could hold back Quang Manor's army of 6 million. The revered Dragon Marquis and the sovereign family were indeed dreaming. Because of Zhang Fan's arrival, Paragon Ye's original plan to rush into the North Divine region to plunder resources was completely disrupted. Damn it, if I attack Zhang Fan, not to mention that he is a marquis himself, just the fact that he is indebted to my boss is enough to stop me from attacking him. Paragon Yi laid lazily on the chair. His eyes were lifeless. At this moment, the army of 1,000,000 captives was rebuilding the North Town City. It took them 3 months to rebuild the North Town City, and the defensive barrier was also reactivated. Paragon Yi was bored out of his mind, and he was thinking about how to get more resources. The map was completely destroyed, and the resources that could be plundered were all plundered. However, it was still not enough for the army. Paragon Ye's wealth was emptied, and he was almost unable to pay the soldiers. Men, go and inform Yin Ao that I have left Wen Zhongwang's army of 3,000,000 behind. Even if I did not contribute anything, I should at least be rewarded for my hard work. It has been almost a year, and the sovereign family did not even reward me with a fart. Paragon Yi roared angrily as he played with the immortal ring. Yi Chentian and Stan Wuxia looked at each other. They knew that Paragon Yi was a little hysterical. If he could not get the soldiers' pay, he would probably even attack Zhang Fan's army. I'll go and inform Uncle Master Yin Ao. You stay here and guard this guy. Don't let him attack recklessly. After all, Zhang Fan is a newly ascended golden immortal. He can wipe out an army of 1,000,000 on his own. Both sides will definitely suffer if they fight him, Yi Chentian said to Stan Wuxia. Stan Wuxia nodded and walked into Paragon Ye's tent. Paragon Yi looked at Stan Wuxia and pouted. Wuxia, we have to think about the army's future. We don't have the soldiers' pay, and we don't have the experts. We have to be anxious. Stan Wuxia rolled his eyes and said, Of course, I know we're anxious, but the war has not started yet. It's not good for us to take the initiative to attack Jingfan's army, right? Boss won't allow us to bite the hand that feeds us. The people of the undying immortal world are all watching. If we take the initiative to attack, our reputation will be gone, and so will our future. Paragon Yi looked at Stan Wuxia as if he expected better from him. He stood up lazily and pointed at Crouching Dragon City in the southern part of the northern garrison district. We can bypass Jingfan's army and attack the revered dragon army directly. Stan Wuxia's eyes narrowed, and he immediately reminded, that's crossing the line. It'll cause a misunderstanding with Crouching Dragon City's army. Misunderstanding my ass. Yin Ao probably doesn't even dare to see me now. Does he dare to question me? Does he have any shame? Paragon Yi roared. Stan Wuxia smiled bitterly. Perhaps only Paragon Yi would dare to scold Yin Ao like that. Calm down first. Chen Tian went to ask for credit. I hope Uncle Master Yin Ao can reward us with some pay, Stan Wuxia said helplessly. Paragon Yi understood that this was his private army. Moreover, it was a private army promised by Yi Qinghan. The immortal nation did not recognize it. It was unlike Chess Supreme Saint's army of 5,000,000 that had pay. His army basically did not have any pay. It's better to rely on myself than on others. Before the war breaks out, I have to get some money. Otherwise, how can I fight? Paragon Yi pondered for a long time and decided to take the initiative to attack. How do you want to do it? Stan Wuxia asked. Gather a group of mystic immortal rank private army for me and sneak into the northern divine region with me, Paragon Yi said firmly. Stan Wuxia looked at Paragon Yi and felt that he had really gone mad. He could not help but remind him, you're the commander of the northern garrison district's army. What's going to happen to the army if you leave? You and Chen Tian are dead. Why am I assigned to you two idiots? You can't help at all. You're even causing trouble for me, Paragon Yi mocked in disdain. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.